Marlo Bennett was 28 years old and she did not tolerate bullies. Not in her work as a social worker, not in her personal life, and definitely not in restaurants where hard-working people were just trying to make it through their shift. She sat alone at Romano's, an upscale Italian place in downtown Boston, nervously checking her phone every 30 seconds. Her best friend Kenna had set her up on a blind date, and Marlo was already regretting saying yes. 6 months had passed since Trent cheated on her with someone from her own office, and she still felt raw about it. The restaurant buzzed with quiet conversation and clinking glasses. Soft piano music played somewhere in the background. Marlo fidgeted with her napkin, wondering if she should just leave before her date even showed up. That's when she heard the voice. Sure. Cold. Dripping with entitlement. Are you actually this incompetent, or are you trying to ruin my evening on purpose? Marlo's head snapped toward the voice. 2 tables over, a man in an expensive suit was berating a young waitress who couldn't have been older than 20. The girl's hands shook as she held a tray, her eyes glistening with tears she was clearly fighting to hold back. I asked for sparkling water, not this tap garbage, the man continued, his voice loud enough that nearby diners were starting to stare. Do you not understand basic English? Or did they just hire you because you're pretty and hoped you'd figure the rest out? The waitress stammered an apology, her voice barely audible. Her name tag read Sophie. Marlo felt her blood boil. She'd seen this before. Rich people who thought money gave them permission to treat others like dirt. She dealt with entitled parents in the foster system who looked at caseworkers the same way this man was looking at Sophie right now. Before she could stop herself, Marlo stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. Several people turned to look at her, but she didn't care. She walked straight to his table. Excuse me, Marlo said, her voice steady but cold. I couldn't help but overhear you being absolutely vile to this young woman. The man looked up, his dark eyes widening slightly in surprise. He was handsome in that polished, too-perfect way that usually meant someone had never been told no in their entire life. His black hair was styled precisely, his jawline sharp, his suit probably worth more than Marlo's monthly rent. I'm sorry, and you are? He asked, his tone dismissive. Someone with basic human decency, Marlo shot back. She apologized. She's getting you new water. There's no reason to humiliate her in front of the entire restaurant. His expression hardened. This is none of your business. You made it everyone's business when you decided to throw your tantrum loud enough for half of Boston to hear, Marlo said. She turned to Sophie, whose face was flushed with embarrassment. You're doing great. Don't let people like him make you feel small. Sophie nodded, tears finally spilling down her cheeks as she hurried away. The man stood up slowly and Marlo realized he was tall. Very tall. He towered over her 5'6" frame by at least half a foot. But she'd faced down angry foster parents twice her size. She didn't scare easily. You have no idea what you're talking about, he said quietly, his voice laced with barely controlled anger. I've had the worst day imaginable, and I don't need some self-righteous stranger lecturing me about manners. Everyone has bad days, Marlo replied. That doesn't give you the right to make someone else's day worse. Especially someone who's just trying to do their job. I wasn't trying to. He stopped himself, jaw clenched. You know what? Fine. You're right. I'm the villain in your little story. Feel better now? Not particularly, Marlo said. But maybe Sophie does. They stared at each other for a long, tense moment. His dark eyes were unreadable, but something flickered there. Anger, yes, but something else too. Something that looked almost like shame. Then Marlo's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A text from Kenna. He just texted me. He's running 10 minutes late, but he's there. Look for the guy in the navy suit at table 12. You're gonna love him, Marlo. Promise? Marlo's stomach dropped. She looked up at the man in front of her. Navy suit. She glanced past him at the table he'd been sitting at. Table 12. No. The man followed her gaze, then looked back at her. Understanding dawned on his face at the same moment. You're Marlo, he said slowly. She wanted to disappear. To sink through the floor and never resurface. And you're? She asked, though she already knew the answer. He extended his hand, his expression now unreadable. Caspian Hale. Your date. Marlo stared at his outstretched hand like it might bite her. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around and walk straight out of this restaurant, but her feet seemed frozen to the floor. You've got to be kidding me, she muttered. Caspian lowered his hand. I could say the same thing. Kenna told me I'd be meeting someone passionate. She didn't mention self-righteous. And she told me I'd be meeting someone successful. She left out the part about him being cruel to service workers. His jaw tightened again. For a moment, Marlowe thought he might just walk away, which would honestly be perfect. But instead, he gestured toward his table. "We're already here. Might as well sit down and get through this disaster," he said. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me," Marlowe replied sarcastically. But she sat down anyway. Partially because leaving would mean Kenna would never stop asking questions, and partially because some stubborn part of her wanted to understand how someone could be so cruel one moment and so composed the next. Caspian sat across from her. Up close, she noticed the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. He did look exhausted, though that didn't excuse anything. A different waiter appeared, an older man who handled their drink orders with professional efficiency. Marlowe ordered wine. She was going to need it. "I should clarify something," Caspian said once they were alone. "What you saw earlier, that wasn't my finest moment. I apologize." "To me? Or to Sophie?" "To both of you. Sophie's the one who deserves it more." "I'm aware," he said tightly. "I'll find her before I leave and apologize properly. Does that satisfy your moral standards?" Marlowe leaned back in her chair. "Why were you so awful to her?" Caspian was quiet for a moment. He looked down at his hands, and Marlowe noticed for the first time that he wasn't wearing any rings. His fingers were long, elegant. The hands of someone who'd never done hard labor a day in his life. "My mother died 3 years ago today," he said finally, his voice softer. "I visit her grave every year on this date. It never gets easier. I came here afterward because this was her favorite restaurant, and I took out my pain on someone who didn't deserve it. There's no excuse for that." Marlowe felt her anger falter slightly. Just slightly. "I'm sorry about your mother," she said. "But you're right. There's no excuse." "I know." They sat in uncomfortable silence until their drinks arrived. Marlowe sipped her wine and tried to figure out how this evening had gone so completely wrong. 6 months ago, she'd walked in on Trent kissing Shayla in the break room at work. They'd been together for 2 years. She'd actually thought he might propose. Instead, she got betrayal and humiliation and awkward office encounters that eventually drove her to request a transfer to a different location. Kenna had been the one to pick up the pieces. To remind Marlowe that she deserved better. To convince her that maybe, just maybe, there were decent men out there worth meeting. And now here she was, sitting across from someone who yelled at waitresses on the anniversary of his mother's death. "Kenna's told me a lot about you," Caspian said, clearly trying to shift to safer territory. "You're a social worker. You work with kids in the foster system." "That's right. Must be difficult work." "It is. But someone has to do it." Marlowe paused. "And someone has to stand up for people like Sophie when entitled jerks decide to make their lives harder." A ghost of a smile crossed Caspian's face. "You don't pull punches, do you? Life's too short for that." "Fair enough." He took a sip of his drink. "For what it's worth, Kenna told me you were smart and caring and had a spine made of steel." "She wasn't wrong." "She told me you were generous and passionate about helping people," Marlowe countered. "So either she was lying, or there's more to you than what I saw tonight." Something shifted in his expression. "My mother grew up poor. She never forgot where she came from, even after she married my father and money stopped being a problem. Before she died, she made me promise I'd start a foundation in her name. Something that would actually help people who needed it." Marlowe's interest sparked despite herself. "And did you?" "I'm trying to. It's complicated. My father thinks charity is a waste of resources. He'd rather I focus on the family business." Caspian's voice carried an edge of bitterness. "But it's what she wanted. So I'm making it happen whether he approves or not." That was not what Marlowe had expected to hear. She studied him more carefully now, trying to reconcile the man who'd humiliated Sophie with the man talking about honoring his mother's wishes. "What kind of foundation?" she asked. "Medical assistance for people who can't afford treatment. Scholarships for kids from low-income families. That sort of thing." He met her eyes. "I know it doesn't erase what you saw earlier. But it's the truth." Their food arrived. Marlowe had barely glanced at the menu earlier, so she couldn't even remember what she'd ordered. Some kind of pasta. It smelled good, but her appetite had vanished. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The tension had shifted from hostile to something more complicated. Marlowe hated that she was starting to see him as an actual person instead of just the villain from earlier. "Why did you agree to this date?" Caspian asked suddenly. "Kenna said you haven't dated anyone since your ex." Marlowe's grip tightened on her fork. "Kenna talks too much. She cares about you." "I know." Marlowe sighed. My ex cheated on me with someone from work. It destroyed my ability to trust people. Kenna thought getting back out there might help. And instead you got me, Caspian said dryly. Your luck is about as good as mine. Despite everything, Marlowe almost laughed. This has definitely been the worst first date I've ever been on. Same. They locked eyes, and for just a second something passed between them. An understanding, maybe. A recognition that they were both carrying wounds they didn't quite know how to heal. Caspian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. I should go, he said, pulling out his wallet. I have an early meeting tomorrow. Running away? Marlowe challenged. Retreating strategically, he corrected. He left cash on the table, far more than the meal cost. For Sophie. Make sure she gets it? Marlowe nodded slowly. Caspian stood, then hesitated. I know this was a disaster. But for what it's worth, you were right to call me out. Not enough people do. He turned to leave. Wait, Marlowe said. She didn't know why she was stopping him. Are you actually going to apologize to her? Yes. Then I'll wait. I want to see it. Caspian looked surprised but nodded. He found Sophie near the kitchen, and Marlowe watched from a distance as he spoke to her quietly. Whatever he said made Sophie's expression soften. She even smiled slightly. He pressed something into her hand, probably more money, and she nodded, looking genuinely touched. When he came back, Marlowe stood. That was decent of you, she admitted. Low bar, but I'll take it. He walked her toward the exit. Can I give you a ride home? It's late. Every rational part of Marlowe's brain said to refuse. But Boston wasn't the safest city at night, and she'd taken the subway here. Fine, she said. But just because I don't want to deal with the tea this late. Understood. They walked outside into the cool October air. The restaurant's valet brought around a sleek black car that probably cost more than Marlowe would make in 5 years. Caspian opened the passenger door for her. She climbed in, inhaling the scent of expensive leather. He got in the driver's side and pulled out into traffic. They drove in silence for a few blocks, the city lights washing over them. That's when Marlowe noticed the cameras. Flashes of light from the sidewalk. People with phones pointed at the car. What the hell? She muttered. Caspian cursed under his breath. Paparazzi. They must have been waiting outside the restaurant. Why would paparazzi care about you? He gave her a look. My father owns half the commercial real estate in New England. I'm what people call a billionaire heir. Which means my personal life is apparently public property. Marlowe's stomach sank as more flashes went off. She could already imagine her face plastered across gossip websites by morning. This is perfect, she said. Just perfect. Caspian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Welcome to my world, Marlowe. It only gets worse from here. Marlowe's phone started ringing at 6:30 in the morning. She groaned and buried her face in her pillow, but the ringing didn't stop. Finally, she grabbed it from her nightstand and squinted at the screen. Kenna. Of course. What? Marlowe answered, her voice rough with sleep. Have you seen the internet? Kenna practically shouted. Marlowe, you're all over it. There are pictures everywhere. Who is this guy? Why didn't you text me last night? Is he hot in person? The photos are kind of blurry, but he looks... Kenna. Slow down. Marlowe sat up, her head pounding. She'd barely slept after Caspian dropped her off. What are you talking about? Check your phone. Google yourself. Do something. You're famous. Marlowe pulled up her browser with a sense of dread. She typed in her name. The first result made her stomach drop. Mystery woman spotted with billionaire Caspian Hale. New romance? There was a photo of her getting into his car. Another of them through the restaurant window, sitting at dinner. She looked annoyed in every single one, but of course the articles were spinning it as intense chemistry and heated conversation. Oh my God, Marlowe whispered. I know, right? Kenna said. This is insane. How was I supposed to know he was that loaded? His profile said he worked in real estate development. That could mean anything. Marlowe scrolled through article after article. They'd identified her. Someone had already dug up her LinkedIn profile. One tabloid called her a non-profit social worker from South Boston. Another speculated about whether she was a gold digger or the real deal. This can't be happening, Marlowe said. So what was he like? Tell me everything. Marlowe gave her a condensed version of the previous night, leaving out the parts that felt too personal. Kenna listened with growing horror. He yelled at a waitress? On a first date? Before he knew it was a date. And it was the anniversary of his mother's death, apparently. That's sad, but still. Yikes. Kenna paused. Are you going to see him again? Absolutely not. This whole thing is a nightmare. But even as she said it, Marlowe remembered the look in Caspian's eyes when he talked about his mother. The way he'd apologized to Sophie. The contradictions didn't add up to someone she could easily dismiss. Her phone buzzed with another call. Her boss, Patricia. I have to go, Marlowe told Kenna. Work's calling. She switched lines. Hi, Patricia. Marlowe. Patricia's voice was tight. We need to talk. Can you come in early? Marlowe's chest tightened. Is something wrong? Just come in. We'll discuss it here. The line went dead. Marlowe sat on the edge of her bed, staring at nothing. She'd worked at Children's Alliance for 4 years. She'd transferred locations after the Trent situation, but she loved her job. She was good at it. Kids trusted her. Families trusted her. And now her face was all over the internet because she'd gone on one disastrous date. She showered quickly and dressed in her usual work clothes, simple slacks and a blouse. Professional. Unremarkable. The opposite of whatever those tabloid photos were trying to make her into. The subway ride downtown felt longer than usual. Marlowe kept her head down, paranoid that someone might recognize her even though that was probably ridiculous. Children's Alliance occupied the 3rd floor of an old brick building in downtown Boston. Marlowe had always loved the office. Worn wooden floors, walls covered in children's artwork, the smell of coffee always brewing in the break room. Patricia was waiting in her office. She was 56. With gray hair she wore in a practical bun and glasses that always seemed to be sliding down her nose. She'd been doing social work for 30 years, and Marlowe respected her more than almost anyone. Sit down, Patricia said. Marlowe sat. Her hands felt clammy. I'm going to be direct, Patricia began. The board saw the articles this morning. They're concerned about the publicity. Concerned how? We work with vulnerable families, Marlowe. Families who are already dealing with judgment from the system, from their communities. The last thing we need is for our caseworkers to become tabloid fodder. It reflects poorly on the organization. Marlowe felt her face flush. I went on one date. I didn't do anything wrong. I know that. But perception matters. Especially when we're constantly fighting for funding. Patricia sighed. They're not firing you. But they want you to keep your distance from this Hale person. And they want you to decline any media requests. Media requests? Marlowe's voice pitched higher. Why would I get media requests? You're the mystery woman dating a billionaire. People are curious. I'm not dating him. It was one terrible date. Patricia gave her a long look. Then this should blow over quickly. Just keep your head down for a while. Can you do that? Marlowe nodded, even though anger was building in her chest. She'd done nothing wrong. She'd stood up for someone being mistreated. She'd agreed to one date her best friend had arranged. And now she was being treated like she'd committed some kind of scandal. She spent the morning doing paperwork and trying to focus on her cases. But her phone kept buzzing with notifications. Friend requests from strangers. Comments on old photos. Even a few messages from reporters asking for interviews. She turned her phone on silent and shoved it in her desk drawer. At lunch she finally checked it again. One number had called 3 times. She didn't recognize it. Then a text came through from the same number. Marlowe, it's Caspian. I got your number from Kenna. We need to talk. She stared at the message. Part of her wanted to block him and pretend last night had never happened. But another part, the part that never backed down from a challenge, wanted answers. She typed back, about what? His response came quickly, the photos. The media attention. I can help control the narrative if you'll let me. Marlowe hesitated, then called him. He answered on the first ring. Thank you for calling back. I didn't have much choice. My boss just told me the board is worried about my association with you. I'm sorry. I should have warned you about the paparazzi. A little late for that. Marlowe kept her voice low, aware of her co-workers nearby. What do you want, Caspian? To fix this. My publicist can put out a statement saying we're just friends. That it was a casual dinner. The story will die down in a few days. And what do you get out of that? He was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I'd rather not have my love life dissected by strangers either. This helps both of us. That made sense. But Marlowe still felt uneasy. Fine, she said. Do whatever you need to do. There's something else. He paused. I meant what I said last night about the foundation. I'm looking for someone to help run it. Someone who actually understands the people we'd be helping. Someone with experience in social services. And you think that's me? I think you have integrity. That's rare. Marlo almost laughed. You mean I'm the person who called you out for being terrible? That's why you want to hire me? Partly yes. But also because Kenna said you're brilliant at your job and you care deeply about helping people. That's exactly what this foundation needs. I already have a job. One that apparently doesn't appreciate you very much if they're worried about you showing up in a few photos. That stung because it was true. I'm not interested, Marlo said. Find someone else. Just think about it. Please. Before she could respond, her office door opened. Patricia stood there, her expression grim. Marlo. My office. Now. Marlo's heart sank. I have to go. She hung up and followed Patricia back down the hall. This time, Patricia closed the door. I just got a call from one of our major donors, Patricia said. They saw the articles. They're threatening to pull their funding if we don't address the situation. Address it how? They want you to take a leave of absence. Just until this blows over. Marlo felt like she'd been slapped. You're suspending me? Not officially. Would be voluntary. With pay. But still suspension. Marlo's hands shook. I haven't done anything wrong, Patricia. I know. And I told them that. But they're not listening. They think this kind of publicity damages our reputation. Patricia looked genuinely pained. I'm sorry, Marlo. I really am. But my hands are tied. Marlo stood up. She didn't trust herself to speak. She walked out of Patricia's office, grabbed her bag and left the building. She made it halfway down the block before the tears came. Her phone rang again. Caspian. She answered, her voice thick. What now? Are you okay? You sound upset. They're making me take a leave of absence. Because of you. Because I showed up in photos with you. Silence. I'm coming to get you, he said finally. Where are you? I don't need. Where are you, Marlo? She gave him the address, too tired to argue. He showed up 10 minutes later in the same expensive car from last night. Marlo climbed in without a word. I'm sorry, he said immediately. This is my fault. Yes, it is. He pulled into traffic. Let me make it right. Work for the foundation. I'll triple whatever you're making now. You can write your own job description. And you won't have to answer to donors who care more about appearances than actual good work. I don't want your guilt money. It's not guilt money. It's a legitimate offer. I need someone like you. And frankly, it sounds like you need a fresh start. Marlo stared out the window. She thought about her tiny apartment in South Boston. The student loans that never seemed to get smaller. The way she'd felt walking out of that office, humiliated and powerless. How much are we talking? She asked quietly. He named a figure that made her head spin. 3 times her salary was an understatement. It was enough to pay off her loans in a year. Enough to finally breathe. I need time to think about it, she said. Take all the time you need. They drove in silence for a while. Finally, Caspian pulled up outside her apartment building. For what it's worth, he said as she was getting out, I think you're extraordinary. What you did last night standing up for that waitress. Most people would have just looked away. Marlo met his eyes. They were dark, intense, and completely sincere. Don't think flattery will change my mind, she said. Wouldn't dream of it. She went inside and climbed the 3 flights to her apartment. It was small, cramped, and the heating barely worked in winter. But it was hers. Her phone rang as she was unlocking her door. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Is this Marlo Bennett? A man's voice. Raspy. Weak. Yes. Who is this? It's the nursing home. Whispering Pines. It's about your father. Marlo's blood ran cold. What happened? He's had an episode. His heart. The doctors are with him now, but... The man paused. You should come as soon as you can. The line went dead. Marlo stood frozen in her doorway, her keys still in her hand. Her father. The only family she had left. She called a car service, her hands shaking so badly she could barely type the address. Whispering Pines was 40 minutes outside the city. Too far. Too long. Her phone buzzed with a text from Caspian. If you need anything, call me. I mean it. She stared at the message. Pride told her to ignore it. But desperation was louder than pride. She called him. My father's in the hospital, she said when he answered. His heart. I need to get there, but I don't have a car and... Send me the address. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Caspian, you don't have to. 5 minutes, Marlo. He was there in 4. The drive to Whispering Pines felt endless. Marlo sat rigid in the passenger seat, her fingers twisted together so tightly they'd gone numb. Caspian didn't try to make conversation, and she was grateful for that. She couldn't handle small talk right now. Her father, Eugene Bennett, 67 years old and the toughest man she'd ever known. He'd raised her alone after her mother left when Marlo was 8. She barely remembered her mother, just fragments of a woman with sad eyes and a suitcase by the door. Eugene never spoke about her. Never explained why she'd walked away from them both. Instead, he'd worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat. Maintenance during the day, security guard at night. He'd shown up to every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every moment that mattered. He'd taught her to be strong, to stand up for herself, to never let anyone make her feel small. And 3 years ago his heart started failing. The doctors said it was years of stress, poor diet, lack of sleep. All those sacrifices he'd made for her had literally broken his heart. Marlo had moved him into Whispering Pines 18 months ago when it became clear he couldn't live alone anymore. The place was decent, clean, staffed with kind nurses, but it wasn't cheap. Between the monthly fees and her student loans, Marlo barely scraped by. "We're almost there," Caspian said quietly, breaking the silence. Marlo nodded. She couldn't speak. If she opened her mouth, she'd fall apart, and she couldn't afford to do that yet. Caspian pulled into the parking lot. Before Marlo could unbuckle her seatbelt, he said, "I'll wait here. Take as long as you need." She looked at him, surprised. "You don't have to wait." "I know." Something in his expression stopped her from arguing. She got out and ran toward the entrance. The receptionist recognized her immediately. "3rd floor. Room 312. Dr. Morrison is with him." Marlo took the stairs 2 at a time. Her lungs burned by the time she reached the 3rd floor, but she didn't slow down. Room 312. The door was partially open. Inside, her father lay in the bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, monitors beeping steadily beside him. He looked smaller than she remembered. Frilier. His dark skin had an ashy quality that terrified her. A doctor in a white coat stood beside the bed, reviewing a chart. He looked up as Marlo entered. "Miss Bennett. I'm Dr. Morrison. Is he okay?" Her voice came out strangled. "He's stable for now. He had what we call a cardiac event. His heart rhythm became irregular, but we've got it under control with medication." "For now," Marlo repeated. "What does that mean?" Dr. Morrison gestured for her to step into the hallway. She followed, her legs feeling unsteady. "Your father's heart is failing, Miss Bennett. We've discussed this before. The medications are helping, but they're not a permanent solution." "What about a transplant?" "He's not a candidate. His age, combined with other health factors, makes it too risky." Dr. Morrison's expression was kind but firm. "There is one option we haven't explored yet. An experimental treatment. It's shown promise in similar cases, but it's expensive and not covered by insurance." Marlo's stomach dropped. "How expensive?" "The initial treatment would be around $200,000. And that's just to start." 200,000. She might as well have said 2 million. There was no way Marlo could afford that. Not in this lifetime. "How long does he have without it?" she whispered. "It's hard to say. Months maybe. With the treatment he could have years. A decent quality of life." Marlo nodded slowly, trying to process this. Trying to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do. "Can I see him?" "Of course. He's awake but tired. Don't stay too long." Marlo went back into the room. Her father's eyes were closed, but they fluttered open when she approached the bed. "Hey, baby girl," he said, his voice weak. "Hey, Dad." She took his hand. It felt papery and cold. "You scared me. Sorry about that. Wasn't planning on it." He tried to smile. "How'd you get here so fast?" "A friend drove me." "What friend?" "You don't have friends with cars." Despite everything, Marlo almost laughed. "It's a long story. I got time." She pulled a chair close to the bed and told him an abbreviated version of the past 24 hours. The blind date. The billionaire. The photos. The job offer. She left out the part about being forced to take a leave of absence. He didn't need that stress. Eugene listened quietly, his eyes never leaving her face. "So let me get this straight," he said when she finished. "This rich boy wants to hire you to run his charity?" "Something like that." "And you said no?" "I said I'd think about it." Eugene shook his head slowly. "Marlo, baby, you're too stubborn for your own good. I learned from the best. Maybe. But you also gotta know when to accept help." He squeezed her hand. "If this man's offering you good money for good work, why wouldn't you take it?" "Because it feels like charity." "So what?" "Pride don't pay bills." His expression grew serious. I heard what the doctor said earlier. I know this treatment costs money I don't have. Money you don't have. Dad, don't? Listen to me. I've had a good life. Raised a daughter I'm proud of. That's enough. It's not enough, Marlo said fiercely. You don't get to give up. Not when there's something that could help. Then take the job. I can't take a job just because I need money for your treatment. That's not how this works. Eugene gave her a look she remembered from childhood. The one that meant he was about to say something she wouldn't like but needed to hear. You think I worked 2 jobs for 20 years because I loved night shifts? I did what I had to do. For you. That's what parents do. He paused, catching his breath. Now you got a chance to do work that matters and get paid well for it. If that also helps me, then that's just a bonus. Don't let pride kill us both. Marlo felt tears burning her eyes. What if he's not what he seems? What if this is all some kind of game? Then you'll figure it out. You always do. Eugene closed his eyes. I'm tired, baby. You should go. I want to stay. And I want you to live your life. Go on. I'll still be here tomorrow. Marlo leaned down and kissed his forehead. I love you, Dad. Love you too. Now get. She left the room with her heart in pieces. In the hallway she let herself cry for exactly 60 seconds. Then she wiped her face, straightened her shoulders and went back downstairs. Caspian was still in the parking lot, leaning against his car. He straightened when he saw her approach. How is he? He asked. Stable. For now. Marlo's voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. Caspian studied her face. But she almost didn't tell him. But exhaustion had stripped away her defenses, and the words came tumbling out before she could stop them. He needs an experimental treatment. $200,000 just to start. Insurance won't cover it. Without it he has months. Maybe. She laughed bitterly. So that's perfect timing, right? Caspian was quiet for a long moment. Get in the car. I just want to go home. I know. But first, get in the car. Too tired to argue, Marlo climbed into the passenger seat. Caspian got in beside her but didn't start the engine. Instead, he turned to face her. I'm going to make you an offer, and I need you to hear me out before you say no. Caspian. Just listen. His voice was firm but not unkind. Work for my foundation. 1-year contract. I'll pay you $250,000 for that year, plus benefits. And I'll cover your father's treatment separately. All of it. Whatever he needs. Marlo stared at him. That's not an offer. That's charity. It's a business arrangement. I need someone with your skills and integrity. You need money for your father's care. We both get what we need. Nobody pays $250,000 for 1 year of nonprofit work. I do. Because I want this foundation to actually matter, not just exist on paper to make me look good. He held her gaze. You saw the worst of me last night. But you also saw me try to make it right. I'm not a saint, Marlo. But I'm trying to do something good with the resources I have. And I can't do it without someone like you. Someone like me, she repeated. You mean someone desperate enough to say yes. I mean someone brave enough to call me out when I'm wrong. Someone who cares more about helping people than impressing them. He paused. Your father's right, you know. Pride doesn't pay bills. But it also doesn't make you less worthy of help. Marlo's throat tightened. How do you know what my father said? I didn't. But I'm guessing he told you to take the job, and you're fighting it because accepting help feels like failure. Caspian's expression softened. My mother used to say the same thing. She grew up poor, refused help from anyone even after she married into money. It took her years to understand that accepting support isn't weakness. It's just being human. A tear slid down Marlo's cheek. She wiped it away angrily. If I say yes, she said slowly, I need complete autonomy over the foundation's operations. Not going to be your puppet. Agreed. And I need it in writing. All of it. The salary, the coverage for my father's treatment, my authority over decision-making. My lawyer will have a contract ready by tomorrow. And if I decide after a month that this isn't working, I can leave. But you still cover my father's treatment. Caspian hesitated at that. 6 months minimum. Give it a real chance. But yes, if you leave after 6 months, I'll still cover your father's care. You have my word. Marlo searched his face for any sign of deception. All she saw was sincerity and something else. Hope, maybe. Why are you really doing this? She asked. The truth. Because 3 years ago, I watched my mother die from a disease that could have been caught earlier if she'd had access to better healthcare when she was younger. And I sat there in that hospital thinking about all the money my family has, and how it couldn't save her because we'd gotten there too late. His voice roughened. I don't want to be the kind of person who has resources and does nothing with them. And I especially don't want to watch someone else lose a parent when I could help prevent it. The raw honesty in his words cracked something open in Marlowe's chest. She understood loss. She understood the desperate need to do something, anything to make the pain mean something. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. Relief flooded Caspian's features. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might regret hiring someone who yells at you in restaurants. I doubt that. He started the car. I'll take you home. Get some rest. We'll figure out the details tomorrow. They drove back to Boston in comfortable silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Marlowe watched the city approach and tried to process everything that had happened in the past 30 hours. Yesterday morning she'd been a social worker with a stable if unremarkable life. Now she was on forced leave from her job, all over the internet as some billionaire's mystery woman, and about to start working for said billionaire while he paid for her father's life-saving treatment. Her life had become unrecognizable. Caspian pulled up outside her apartment building. Before she could get out he said, Marlowe, I won't let you down. I promise. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. Just don't make me regret this, she said. I'll do my best. She climbed out and headed inside. Her apartment felt smaller than ever, but also like a sanctuary. She collapsed on her couch and finally let herself fully cry. For her father. For the career she'd worked so hard to build. For the terrifying leap she'd just taken. Her phone buzzed. A text from Kenna. Did you really just accept a job from Billionaire Boy? Because that's what he just told me and I need all the details. Marlowe smiled despite everything. She texted back, tomorrow. I promise. Tonight I just need sleep. She made herself eat something, leftover pasta from 3 days ago, and took a long shower. When she finally crawled into bed, she expected to lie awake for hours, her mind spinning. Instead, she fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by emotion and shock. She woke to her phone ringing. Disoriented, she grabbed it and checked the time. 3 a.m. The caller ID said Whispering Pines. Her heart stopped. Hello. Her voice came out panicked. Ms. Bennett, this is Nurse Caroline from Whispering Pines. Your father is fine, the woman said quickly. But there's something you should know. A lawyer showed up about an hour ago with paperwork. Someone's agreed to cover all of your father's medical expenses, including the experimental treatment. The first payment has already been processed. Marlowe sat up. What? Who? The paperwork says it's from the Hale Foundation. Does that name mean anything to you? Yes. Marlowe's voice was barely a whisper. Thank you for calling. She hung up and stared at her phone in the darkness. Caspian had said they'd work out the details tomorrow. He'd said he'd have a contract ready. He hadn't said he'd already taken care of everything tonight. She found his number and called before she could overthink it. He answered on the second ring, his voice alert. Marlowe? What's wrong? The nursing home just called. You already paid for my father's treatment. Yes. We didn't sign anything yet. We didn't even discuss specifics. I know. But your father needs that treatment to start as soon as possible, and I didn't want paperwork to delay it. He paused. This isn't contingent on you working for me, Marlowe. Even if you change your mind tomorrow, the treatment is covered. That was always going to happen. She couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up completely. Marlowe? Why? She managed. Because it's the right thing to do. And because no one should have to watch their parent die for lack of money when someone could help. His voice was gentle. Get some sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. He hung up before she could respond. Marlowe sat in her dark apartment, phone still pressed to her ear, and felt something shift inside her. She'd been so certain she had Caspian figured out. Arrogant billionaire who treated people as disposable. Someone to keep at arm's length. But people who were cruel didn't pay for strangers' medical treatments in the middle of the night. They didn't make sure a dying man got help before securing their own interests. Maybe she'd been wrong about him. Or maybe he was more complicated than she'd wanted to admit. Her phone buzzed with a text. Not from Caspian. From a number she hadn't seen in 6 months. Trent. I saw the pictures. You and that billionaire. Really, Marlowe? You always said you weren't materialistic. Guess you just needed the right price. Rage flooded through her, hot and immediate. She started typing a response, then deleted it. Then typed another one and deleted that too. Finally, she just blocked his number. She didn't owe him explanations. She didn't owe him anything. She was about to put her phone down when it buzzed again. Another unfamiliar number. Against her better judgment, she opened it. The message contained no words. Just a photograph. It showed Caspian leaving a nightclub, his arm around a beautiful woman with long dark hair and a dress that probably cost more than Marlowe's monthly rent. The photo was dated 3 days ago. Below it, a message, ask him about Valencia. And then another photo. This one showed Caspian and the same woman kissing outside what looked like an expensive restaurant. Marlowe's stomach turned over. Before she could process what she was seeing, another text came through from the same number. He's using you. Just like he uses everyone. Thought you should know the truth before you make any big decisions. The number was blocked after that. When Marlowe tried to call it back, she got nothing. She sat in bed, staring at the photos until her eyes burned. She wanted to believe they were fake. Photoshopped. Some kind of misunderstanding. But they looked real. And they raised a question she couldn't ignore. Who was Valencia? And why did someone want to make sure Marlowe knew about her? Morning came too quickly. Marlowe had managed maybe 2 hours of sleep, her mind cycling through those photos on an endless loop. By the time the sun rose, she'd convinced herself 3 separate times to call Caspian and demand answers, then talked herself out of it just as many times. She needed coffee. And clarity. Though probably not in that order. Her phone rang as she was brewing her second pot. Kenna. You blocked Trent? Kenna said immediately. Good. He's been texting me all night trying to get information about you and this Caspian guy. I told him to lose my number. Thanks. Marlowe's voice was flat. You sound awful. What happened? Marlowe filled her in on everything. Her father's condition. The job offer. Caspian paying for the treatment before they'd even signed a contract. Okay, that's actually really sweet, Kenna said. So why do you sound like someone died? Because I got anonymous texts last night. Photos of Caspian with some woman named Valencia. They were kissing. Silence. When were the photos taken? Kenna asked carefully. 3 days ago, according to the timestamp. So before your date? Yes. But also after he supposedly set up this whole foundation idea. After he told me about how much he wanted to honor his mother's memory. Marlowe rubbed her temples. I don't know what to think. I think you should ask him directly instead of spiraling. What if he lies? Then you'll know. You're good at reading people, Marlowe. It's literally your job. Kenna paused. But here's what I think. Someone sent you those photos for a reason. Someone wants you to doubt him. The question is why. That was a good point. Marlowe hadn't considered that angle. I have to go, Kenna said. But call him. Get answers. And text me later because I'm losing my mind over here. After she hung up, Marlowe stared at Caspian's contact information. Her finger hovered over the call button. Before she could make a decision, her apartment buzzer rang. She went to the intercom. Hello. It's me, Caspian's voice crackled through the speaker. Can I come up? Marlowe's heart jumped. She glanced down at herself, old sweatpants and a faded college t-shirt. Her hair was a mess. She looked exactly like someone who'd gotten maybe 2 hours of sleep. Give me 5 minutes, she said. Take your time. She ran to her bedroom and threw on jeans and a decent shirt. Brushed her teeth. Pulled her hair into a ponytail. It was the best she could do on short notice. When she opened her apartment door, Caspian stood in the hallway holding 2 coffee cups and a paper bag that smelled like fresh pastries. Peace offering, he said. I know yesterday was overwhelming. He looked tired too. His usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled, and there were shadows under his eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Marlowe stepped aside to let him in. Her apartment suddenly felt even smaller with him in it. He seemed to take up all the available space, though he was clearly trying to make himself less imposing. Nice place, he said looking around. You don't have to lie. It's tiny and the heating barely works. I grew up in a 15,000 square foot house that always felt empty. Tiny and warm sounds pretty good actually. He set the coffee and pastries on her small kitchen table. Marlowe sat across from him trying to figure out how to bring up the photos. Caspian spoke first. I brought the contract. My lawyer worked through the night to get it done. He pulled papers from his briefcase. Everything we discussed. Your salary, your authority over the foundation, the coverage for your father's treatment. It's all here. Marlowe took the papers and skimmed through them. It was thorough. Almost too thorough. There's a clause here about media appearances, she said. I have to get your approval before doing any interviews about the foundation? That's standard. But if you want it removed, we can remove it. I want it removed. Done. He pulled out a pen and crossed out the entire section, then initialed it. Anything else? Who's Valencia? The question hung in the air between them. Caspian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Why are you asking about Valencia? Because someone sent me photos of you with her. From 3 days ago. You were kissing her outside a restaurant. Caspian's jaw tightened. Someone sent you those? Yes. Did they say anything else? Just that you use people. And that I should know the truth before making any big decisions. Marlowe leaned forward. So who is she? Caspian was quiet for a long moment. He looked down at his hands, then back at Marlowe. Valencia Ashford. My ex-fiancée. We were engaged 2 years ago. She ended it when I told her I was planning to start the foundation instead of joining my father's company full-time. And you were kissing her 3 days ago. No. I saw her 3 days ago at a charity gala. She cornered me outside and kissed me. I pushed her away immediately. His voice was tight. Someone must have gotten a photo of the kiss but not what happened after. That's convenient. It's the truth. How do I know that? Caspian pulled out his own phone. He scrolled through something, then turned it to show her. A video. In it, she could see him and Valencia outside a building. Valencia leaned in and kissed him. After maybe 2 seconds, Caspian put his hands on her shoulders and firmly pushed her back. He said something Marlowe couldn't hear, and Valencia's expression went from hopeful to furious. I told her I wasn't interested, Caspian said. That I'd moved on. She didn't take it well. Marlowe watched the video twice. The timestamp matched the photo. And it showed exactly what he'd said. Why would someone send me just the photo? She asked. Because Valencia is vindictive. And because my father would do anything to sabotage the foundation. Caspian put his phone away. I'm guessing one of them sent those photos. They want you to doubt me so you'll walk away from the job. Why? Valencia wants me back because she realized being engaged to a billionaire was better than her pride. And my father wants the foundation to fail, so I'll come back to the family business. He met her eyes. But I'm telling you the truth, Marlowe. I have no interest in Valencia. That part of my life is over. Marlowe wanted to believe him. The video backed up his story. But trust didn't come easily to her anymore, not after Trent. If we're going to work together, I need honesty, she said. Complete honesty. No surprises. Agreed. And if you're involved with someone, tell me now. Because I'm not getting caught in the middle of your complicated love life. I'm not involved with anyone. Caspian's voice was firm. Valencia is my past. You have my word. Marlowe studied his face. She'd spent years learning to read people, to spot lies and manipulation. She saw none of that in Caspian right now. Just sincerity and maybe a little frustration that he had to prove himself. Okay, she said finally. I believe you. Relief flooded his features. Thank you. But if I find out you lied to me about any of this, you'll make my life hell. I know. I'm counting on it, actually. He slid the contract across the table. So, are we doing this? Marlowe looked at the papers. At the man sitting across from her who'd paid for her father's treatment before she'd even agreed to work for him. Who'd shown her video evidence when he could have just gotten angry at her accusations. She thought about her father in that nursing home bed, telling her not to let pride kill them both. She thought about the kids in the foster system who needed advocates, who needed resources, who needed someone to fight for them. She picked up the pen. We're doing this, she said. She signed the contract. Caspian signed after her, then made a copy on his phone and sent it to her email. Welcome to the Hale Foundation, he said. Your first day starts Monday. That gives you the weekend to process everything and tie up loose ends. What exactly will I be doing? Whatever you think needs to be done. You're the director of operations. You decide which programs we fund, who we help, how we structure everything. He pulled out another folder. But I do have one request. My mother had a list of causes she cared about. Medical assistance for low-income families. Scholarships for first-generation college students. Support for kids aging out of foster care. I'd like those to be our starting points. Marlowe looked through the folder. There were handwritten notes in what must have been his mother's handwriting. Ideas for programs. Names of organizations doing good work. Even a rough budget proposal. She really thought this through, Marlowe said softly. She had 3 years after her diagnosis. She spent a lot of that time planning. Caspian's voice was rough. She knew I'd need direction. Knew I'd struggle to figure it out alone. She sounds like she was an incredible person. She was. You would have liked her. And she would have loved you. The comment caught Marlowe off guard. There was an intimacy to it that felt too personal for their current relationship. But before she could respond, Caspian's phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned. "It's my father. I need to take this." He stepped into the hallway. Through the thin walls, Marlowe could hear his side of the conversation. It wasn't pleasant. "I already told you." "No, that's not happening. I don't care what the board thinks. This is not up for discussion." When he came back in, his expression was stormy. "Problem?" Marlowe asked. "My father's threatening to pull all family money from the foundation. He claims I'm mismanaging funds, that the whole thing is a vanity project." Caspian ran a hand through his hair. "He's calling an emergency board meeting for Monday. Wants to freeze all the foundation's assets until there's a proper audit." "Can he do that?" "He's on the board. And he has enough allies who'll side with him just to stay in his good graces." Caspian looked at Marlowe. "I'm sorry. Your first day is going to be a war zone." "I've dealt with worse," Marlowe said, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. "We'll need to prepare. Gather all our financial records, document every penny we've spent, show exactly where the money's going." He started pacing her tiny living room. "This is exactly what he wants. He wants me to give up, to admit this was a mistake, to come crawling back to his company. Then we don't give him that satisfaction." Caspian stopped pacing and looked at her. "You're really ready to fight this on your first day?" Marlowe thought about her father. About Caspian paying for his treatment without hesitation. About all the people they could help if this foundation succeeded. "I've been fighting systems my entire career," she said. "Rich men who think money gives them control are nothing new. Let's show your father exactly what he's up against." A slow smile spread across Caspian's face. "I think hiring you might be the smartest thing I've ever done." "Don't jinx it. We haven't even started yet." Caspian's phone buzzed with a text. He looked at it and his smile faded. "What now?" Marlowe asked. He turned the phone to show her. It was a photo of them from earlier this morning, through Marlowe's apartment window. Caspian standing in her kitchen. The angle made it look intimate, like he'd spent the night. The text below it read, "The media will love this. Billionaire's new girlfriend already moving in. Unless you want this everywhere by tonight, time to end this foundation nonsense and come home." It was from his father. Marlowe felt cold rage spreading through her chest. "He's threatening you. He's threatening both of us. If these photos go public, your reputation gets destroyed along with mine." "I don't care about my reputation." "You should. This is how he works. He finds leverage and uses it." Caspian's expression was dark. "I'm sorry, Marlowe. I brought you into this mess." "No. Your father created this mess." Marlowe stood up. "And we're not backing down. Let him release the photos. Let him call his board meeting. We'll show up on Monday with every piece of evidence we need to prove this foundation is legitimate." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Marlowe held out her hand. "Partners?" Caspian took her hand. His grip was firm, warm. "Partners." Neither of them noticed the second phone camera across the street, capturing the moment they shook hands. Or the email already being sent to someone who'd been watching Marlowe's apartment since dawn. Valencia Ashford smiled as she forwarded the photos to 3 different tabloids. The foundation office was nothing like Marlowe expected. She'd imagined something sterile and corporate, all glass and steel and uncomfortable modern furniture. Instead, Caspian had chosen a converted warehouse in South Boston, with exposed brick walls, high ceilings, and windows that let in floods of natural light. "My mother hated stuffy offices," Caspian explained as he showed her around Monday morning. "She said places that help people should feel warm, welcoming." Marlowe ran her hand along one of the brick walls. The building had character. History. It felt honest in a way corporate spaces never did. "I like it," she said. Her office was at the end of the hall, spacious but not overwhelming. Someone had already set up a desk, computer, and shelves. On the desk sat a framed photo she recognized immediately, Caspian's mother, Iris, smiling at the camera with kind eyes and laugh lines. "I thought you should know whose vision you're carrying forward," Caspian said quietly. Marlowe picked up the photo. Iris had been beautiful in an understated way. She looked like someone who'd known hardship and chosen kindness anyway. "Thank you," Marlowe said. Before Caspian could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. A woman appeared in the doorway, tall and elegant in a designer suit that probably cost more than Marlowe's entire wardrobe. Her dark hair fell in perfect waves past her shoulders, and her makeup was flawless. "Valencia." Marlowe recognized her immediately from the photos. "Caspian, darling," Valencia said, completely ignoring Marlowe's presence. "We need to talk about this ridiculous board meeting." Your father is being completely unreasonable, and I think I can help smooth things over. Valencia. What are you doing here? Caspian's voice had gone cold. I'm on the board, remember? Your father appointed me last month. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I have every right to be here. Marlowe felt her stomach drop. Of course. Of course Caspian's father would stack the board with people loyal to him. Actually you don't, Marlowe said. Both of them turned to look at her. This is a private office space. Board members are welcome during official meetings, but you can't just show up uninvited. Valencia's eyes narrowed. And you are? Marlowe Bennett, Director of Operations. Ah, the social worker. Valencia looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. How sweet that Caspian's found himself a little charity project. The insult was clear. But Marlowe had dealt with people like Valencia her entire career. Wealthy, entitled individuals who thought money made them superior. If you need to discuss board business, you can schedule a meeting through proper channels, Marlowe said evenly. Otherwise, I'll have to ask you to leave. Valencia laughed. You can't throw me out. I'm a board member. And I'm the Director of Operations with full authority over this space. Which means yes, I can. Marlowe pulled out her phone. Would you like me to call security or will you leave on your own? For a moment, Valencia just stared at her. Then she turned to Caspian. You're really going to let her talk to me like this? She's doing her job, Caspian said. And she's right. If you have board business, we'll discuss it at the meeting this afternoon. Valencia's expression hardened. You're making a mistake, Caspian. Both of you are. She turned on her expensive heels and left, her footsteps sharp and angry against the wooden floor. Once she was gone, Marlowe let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. That was impressive, Caspian said. That was necessary. She was trying to intimidate us. She succeeded in intimidating me a little. Despite the tension, Marlowe almost smiled. She's going to be a problem. She already is a problem. But we'll deal with it. Caspian checked his watch. The board meeting is in 4 hours. We need to go through every financial document, every expense, every decision we've made so far. They spent the next 3 hours buried in paperwork. Marlowe was meticulous, checking every receipt, every invoice, every transfer. The foundation's finances were clean. Caspian had been careful about documentation. But she knew his father would look for any excuse to claim mismanagement. Have you ever felt like someone was setting you up to fail before you even started? That's exactly what was happening here. At 2 o'clock, they headed to the conference room. The board was already assembled, 8 people total. Marlowe recognized Caspian's father immediately. Thaddeus Hale sat at the head of the table, radiating cold authority in his tailored suit. He looked like an older, harder version of Caspian, all sharp angles and calculating eyes. Valencia sat to his right looking smug. The other board members were a mix. Some seemed genuinely interested in the Foundation's mission. Others looked like they were just there to stay on Thaddeus's good side. Let's begin, Thaddeus said without preamble. Caspian, you've been operating this foundation for 6 months now with minimal oversight. The board has concerns about how you're spending our money. The Foundation's money, Caspian corrected. And we're happy to address any concerns. Marlowe? Marlowe stood, pulling up a presentation on the screen behind her. She'd spent the last hour preparing this, knowing she'd need to be thorough. The Hale Foundation has spent approximately $800,000 in 6 months, she began. Here's the breakdown. 40% went to medical assistance for low-income families, covering treatments, medications, and emergency care for 18 families. 30% funded scholarships for 12 first-generation college students. 20% supported transition programs for kids aging out of foster care. The remaining 10% covered operational costs, this office space, salaries, and administrative expenses. She clicked through slides showing specific cases, outcomes, testimonials from families they'd helped. She'd done her homework. Every dollar is accounted for, Marlowe continued. Every recipient was thoroughly vetted. We have documentation for everything. One of the board members, an older woman named Margaret, leaned forward. This is impressive work. These outcomes are exactly what we should be supporting. Outcomes that could have been achieved more efficiently through established organizations, Thaddeus cut in. Instead, my son insisted on creating a vanity project with himself at the center. With all due respect, Mr. Hale, this isn't a vanity project, Marlowe said. Your wife specifically wanted this foundation created. We're honoring her vision. Thaddeus's expression went ice cold. Don't presume to tell me what my wife wanted. I'm not presuming. I'm reading directly from her notes. Marlowe pulled out copies of Iris's handwritten plans and distributed them to the board. She outlined every program we're currently running. She chose the mission statement. This is her legacy. Several board members looked uncomfortable. Bringing up Iris had been a risk, but a calculated one. Some of these people had known her, respected her. My wife was sentimental, Thaddeus said dismissively. She didn't understand business realities. She understood people, Caspian said, his voice tight with anger. Which is more than you've ever done. The room went silent. Thaddeus stood slowly. I'm calling for a vote to freeze all foundation assets pending a full independent audit. This audit will determine whether this organization is financially viable or if it should be dissolved. You can't dissolve my mother's foundation, Caspian said. I can if it's being mismanaged. All in favor? Thaddeus raised his hand. Valencia raised hers immediately. 3 other board members, all business associates of Thaddeus, followed suit. That was 5 votes. They needed a majority to block it. Margaret raised her hand against the motion. 2 other board members joined her. 4 against, 5-4. They were 1 vote short. The last board member, a younger man named Robert, hadn't voted yet. He looked between Thaddeus and Caspian, clearly torn. Robert, Thaddeus said softly. Remember who signs your paychecks. The threat was clear. Robert worked for one of Thaddeus's companies. If he voted against Thaddeus, he'd lose his job. Robert's hand started to rise. Wait, Marlowe said. Before you vote, I want you to look at something. She pulled up a final slide. Photos of the families they'd helped. A single mother whose daughter got the surgery that saved her life. A kid who became the first in his family to go to college. A teenager who'd aged out of foster care and now had stable housing and job training. These are real people, Marlowe said. Real lives that got better because this foundation exists. You can vote to freeze our assets and audit us. We'll pass any audit because we've done nothing wrong. But while you're playing political games, these people suffer. So vote however you need to. Just know what you're really voting for. The room was dead quiet. Robert's hand lowered. I vote against the motion. Thaddeus's face went dark with rage. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But I'm making it anyway. Robert looked at Caspian. Your mother helped my family when I was a kid. Paid for my dad's medical bills when he got sick. I owe her this much. The vote was tied, which meant the motion failed. Thaddeus stood. This isn't over. I'll find another way. He walked out, Valencia hurrying after him. Once they were gone, several board members came over to congratulate Marlowe and Caspian. Margaret shook Marlowe's hand warmly. That was well done, dear. Iris would have been proud. After everyone left, Marlowe and Caspian stood alone in the conference room. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her exhausted. We won, Caspian said. We survived. There's a difference. Still, you were incredible in there. Marlowe sank into a chair. Your father's not going to give up. I know. But neither are we. Caspian sat beside her. Thank you. For standing up to him. Not many people do. Someone has to. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Caspian's phone buzzed. He looked at it and frowned. What is it? Marlowe asked. He showed her the screen. A text from an unknown number. Ask your new director about her father. About how convenient his illness became right when she needed money. Some coincidence. Marlowe felt like she'd been slapped. What is that supposed to mean? Caspian was already typing. Someone's trying to make it look like you faked your father's condition to get money from me. That's insane. My father's medical records are real. The nursing home, the doctors, everything is documented. I know that. But whoever sent this is trying to plant doubt. His expression darkened. This has my father's fingerprints all over it. Before Marlowe could respond, her own phone rang. The nursing home. Her heart stopped. Hello. Miss Bennett, it's Nurse Caroline. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but your father's taken a turn. His heart stopped for almost 2 minutes. We got him back, but the doctors say... Her voice cracked. You should come now. They're not sure how much time he has left. Marlowe didn't remember the drive to Whispering Pines. One moment she was in the conference room, the next she was running through the nursing home's sterile hallways with Caspian right behind her. The fluorescent lights hurt her eyes, and every step felt like moving through water. Room 312. The door was open. Inside, machines beeped frantically. Doctors and nurses surrounded her father's bed, moving with urgent efficiency. Eugene's face was gray, his chest barely rising and falling despite the oxygen mask covering his nose and mouth. "Dad," Marlo whispered. Dr. Morrison looked up and saw her. He said something to the other medical staff, then came over. "What happened?" Marlo's voice didn't sound like her own. "His heart stopped. We revived him, but he's very weak." Dr. Morrison's expression was grave. "The experimental treatment was supposed to start tomorrow, but I'm not sure he's strong enough now. His body's shutting down. So do something. Start the treatment today. Right now. Miss Bennett? Right now." Marlo's voice broke. "Please. You said this treatment could give him years. You said it could save him. If his heart is strong enough to handle it. Right now it's not. The treatment is aggressive. It could kill him. And doing nothing will definitely kill him." Marlo looked at her father, hooked up to machines that were the only things keeping him alive. "What would you do if he was your father?" Dr. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "I'd start the treatment. And I'd pray. Then start it." The doctor nodded and went back to Eugene's bedside, calling out orders. Nurses rushed to prepare medications. The room became controlled chaos. Marlo felt Caspian's hand on her shoulder. "Come on. Let them work." She let him guide her into the hallway. Her legs felt unsteady, like they might give out at any moment. Caspian helped her into a chair in the waiting area. "He's going to make it," Caspian said. "He's strong. You don't know that. I know he raised you. Anyone tough enough to do that can survive anything." Despite everything, Marlo almost smiled. "He used to say I was the difficult one. I believe that." They sat in silence for a while. Other families moved through the hallway, some crying, some laughing, all of them carrying the weight of sick loved ones. Marlo had spent so much time in places like this over the past 3 years. She'd learned to hate the smell of disinfectant and the way clocks seemed to move both too fast and too slow. "Can I ask you something?" Caspian said quietly. "Depends on the question. Why social work? It's brutal, underpaid, and most people burn out after a few years. What made you choose it?" Marlo thought about her answer. "When I was 12, my dad lost his job. We almost lost our apartment. A social worker helped us apply for assistance, connected us with resources, made sure we didn't end up homeless. She probably spent an hour total with us, but that hour changed everything." She paused. "I wanted to be that for someone else." "Did you ever find her? Tell her what she meant to you." "She died. Car accident. I was 17 when I found out." Marlo's throat tightened. "I went to her funeral. There must have been 200 people there, all with stories like mine. All these lives she'd touched. And I thought, that's how I want to be remembered. Not for how much money I made or how successful I was. For how many people I helped." Caspian looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "My mother would have really liked you. You keep saying that. Because it's true. She always said the measure of a person is what they do when no one's watching. When there's nothing in it for them." He smiled slightly. "You yelled at me for being cruel to a waitress even though you knew I was your blind date. You had everything to lose and nothing to gain. That's who you are." Marlo didn't know what to say to that. Compliments made her uncomfortable, especially sincere ones. Her phone buzzed. A text from Kenna. "How's your dad? Do you need me to come? I can leave work right now." Marlo typed back, "Not sure yet. We'll update you soon." Another text came through immediately after, this one from a number she didn't recognize. "Is he really sick? Or is this just part of your plan? You're good, I'll give you that." Playing the victim to get close to Caspian's money. "How much are you getting paid to pretend your father's dying?" Marlo stared at the message, rage building in her chest. "What's wrong?" Caspian asked. She showed him the text. His jaw clenched. "Someone's running a smear campaign against you. Trying to make it look like you're a con artist. Your father. Maybe. Or Valencia. She's vindictive enough." He took her phone. "Let me handle this." "There's nothing to handle. It's just some coward hiding behind an anonymous number. It's more than that. Someone's trying to destroy your credibility before you can really start working on the foundation." Caspian's voice was tight with anger. "They want people to think you're using me, that you faked your father's illness to get money. If that story gets out, then what? People will believe it." Marlo took her phone back. "Let them. I know the truth. You know the truth. That's what matters. You really don't care what people think about you, do you?" "I care what the right people think. Everyone else can believe whatever makes them feel superior. Want to know what the truth is about someone? Look at what they do when they're under attack." Marlo wasn't running. She wasn't defending herself. She was just sitting here, waiting to find out if her father would live or die, and she couldn't be bothered to care about some anonymous coward's lies. Dr. Morrison came out of Eugene's room 2 hours later. Marlo jumped to her feet. "He's stable," the doctor said. "The treatment started. His body's responding better than I expected. It's still very early, but this is a good sign." Marlo felt tears of relief streaming down her face. "Can I see him?" "5 minutes. He's sedated, but you can sit with him." She went into the room. Eugene looked small in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that were keeping him alive. But his color was better. His breathing seemed easier. Marlo took his hand. It was warm. "You scared me," she whispered. "Don't do that again." His eyes fluttered open just for a second. He couldn't speak because of the breathing tube, but he squeezed her hand. She stayed until the nurse said she had to leave. When she came back out, Caspian was on his phone, his expression dark. "What happened?" she asked. "The texts. I traced them. They're coming from someone at my father's company." He showed her his phone. "Same person who sent the photos of Valencia and me. Someone on his payroll is targeting you. Can you prove it?" "Working on it. But yes, eventually." He looked at her. "I'm sorry, Marlo. You signed up to run a foundation, not to be caught in my family's war. Your family didn't make me say yes. I made that choice myself." She sat down, suddenly exhausted. "But I won't lie. This is getting complicated. It's going to get worse before it gets better. My father doesn't give up easily. Neither do I." Caspian sat beside her. They didn't speak for a while, just sat in the uncomfortable chairs and watched families come and go. Finally, Caspian said, "Can I tell you something? About my mother?" "Of course. When she got diagnosed, my father wanted her to stop all her charity work. Said she needed to focus on treatment, on herself. But she refused. She spent her last 3 years volunteering, helping people, planning this foundation." He paused. "One day I asked her why. Why spend what time she had left worrying about strangers? And she said something I've never forgotten." "What did she say?" "She said, when you know your time is limited, you realize that kindness is the only thing that matters. Money, power, success, none of that follows you. But the people you help, the lives you touch, that's what lives on." Caspian's voice was rough. "I think about that every time my father tries to shut this foundation down. Every time someone tells me I'm wasting my time and money. This is my mother's legacy. I'm not letting anyone destroy it." Marlo understood then why he'd been so desperate to find the right person to run the foundation. This wasn't just a charity project to him. It was his way of keeping his mother alive. "We'll make her proud," Marlo said. "I promise." They stayed at the nursing home until visiting hours ended. Eugene remained stable, sleeping peacefully under sedation while the treatment worked through his system. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. Caspian drove Marlo home. It was nearly midnight by the time they reached her apartment building. "Get some rest," he said. "We'll figure out tomorrow when it comes." Marlo nodded, too tired to argue. She climbed out of the car, but before she could close the door, Caspian called her name. "Yeah. You're the best decision I've made in a long time. I hope you know that." She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded and headed inside. Her apartment felt empty and too quiet. She collapsed on her couch without bothering to change clothes. Every muscle in her body ached with exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. Another text. For a moment she considered ignoring it. But something made her look. It was a photo. Taken tonight in the nursing home parking lot. It showed her and Caspian in his car, the angle making it look like they were sitting very close, maybe even holding hands. The caption read, "While her father fights for his life, she's cozying up to her meal ticket. True love or true con? You decide." Below there was a link to a tabloid article. Marlo clicked it with dread. The headline made her stomach drop. "Billionaire's new girlfriend accused of faking father's illness for financial gain, exclusive investigation." The article was vicious. It questioned everything: Eugene's medical records, the timing of his worsening condition, Marlo's sudden job with the foundation. It painted her as a calculating gold digger who'd orchestrated everything to trap a wealthy man. Even worse, they'd interviewed people. A neighbor who said Marlo always seemed more focused on money than anything else. A former co-worker from before she transferred offices, it was Shayla, Trent's affair partner, who claimed Marlo was ambitious to a fault and willing to do whatever it took to get ahead. None of it was true. But it was convincing enough that people would believe it. The article had been published an hour ago. It already had thousands of shares. Marlo's phone rang. "Caspian." "I'm looking at it too," he said when she answered. This is bad. How did they get those quotes? How did they get information about my father's medical history? Someone's been digging. Someone with resources. He paused. Marlo, this is worse than we thought. They're not just trying to discredit you. They're trying to destroy you. Her doorbell buzzed. Marlo frowned. Someone's here. Don't answer it. It could be press. But the buzzer kept ringing, urgent and insistent. Finally, Marlo went to the intercom. Who is it? Marlo Bennett? I'm Detective Sarah Chen with Boston PD. I need to speak with you about some allegations that have been made. Marlo's blood went cold. Allegations. Regarding financial fraud and elder abuse. Can you let me up, or would you prefer to come down to the station? The detective sat in Marlo's tiny living room, looking out of place in her sharp blazer and no-nonsense expression. Detective Chen was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. Marlo sat across from her, trying to keep her hands from shaking. Caspian had arrived 15 minutes ago, out of breath from running up 3 flights of stairs after she'd called him in a panic. Let me be clear, Detective Chen said. I'm here because we received a complaint alleging that you manipulated medical records and fabricated a family emergency to extort money from Mr. Hale. The complaint includes what appears to be evidence of financial irregularities. That's insane, Marlo said. My father's medical records are real. Everything about his condition is documented. You can verify it with his doctors. We will. But the person who filed the complaint seems to have access to information that raises questions. Chen pulled out a folder. For instance, your father's primary doctor at Whispering Pines is Dr. Alan Morrison, correct? Yes. According to our information, Dr. Morrison received a payment of $50,000 from an account connected to you approximately 1 week before your father's condition suddenly worsened. Can you explain that? Marlo felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. I never paid Dr. Morrison anything. I don't even have $50,000. The account is in your name. Then someone opened it fraudulently. I never authorized any payment to anyone. Chen made a note. We'll need to investigate that. In the meantime, I also need to ask about your relationship with Mr. Hale. You started working for his foundation approximately 48 hours after meeting him, is that correct? Yes, but... And he agreed to pay for your father's experimental treatment, which costs over $200,000, before you'd even signed an employment contract. He wanted to help. That's what the foundation does. It's also a convenient way to transfer a large sum of money to someone you just met. Chen looked at Caspian. No offense, Mr. Hale, but from an outside perspective, this looks suspicious. From an outside perspective, it looks like someone's framing Marlo, Caspian said coldly. And I think I know who. That's a serious accusation. Do you have evidence? Caspian pulled out his phone. I've been tracking the source of anonymous messages sent to both Marlo and myself. They're coming from an IP address registered to Hale Industries, my father's company. Someone there has been running a coordinated campaign to discredit Marlo since the day she started working with the foundation. Chen took his phone and examined the information. This is interesting, but it's not proof of fraud. It's proof of motive. My father wants to shut down the foundation. Marlo is the key to keeping it running. If he can make her look like a con artist, he destroys the foundation's credibility and forces me to give up. Again, that's a theory. I need facts. Chen turned back to Marlo. Miss Bennett, I'm not saying you did anything wrong. But I am saying there are questions that need answers. Until we can verify everything, I'd advise you to step back from your position with the foundation. Absolutely not, Marlo said. That's exactly what whoever's behind this wants. It's also the smart thing to do if you're innocent. Continuing to work closely with Mr. Hale while under investigation makes you look guilty. Caspian stood up. Detective, with all due respect, Marlo hasn't been charged with anything. You're here on a fishing expedition based on an anonymous complaint. Unless you have actual evidence of wrongdoing, this conversation is over. Chen stood as well. Fair enough. But this isn't going away, Ms. Bennett. Someone's built a convincing case against you, even if it's fabricated. You need to take this seriously. After she left, Marlo sat in stunned silence. Everything was falling apart faster than she could process. This can't be happening, she whispered. Caspian was already on his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. We're going to fight this. Your lawyer? Caspian, I can't afford. You're not paying for anything. This is my father's doing, which makes it my responsibility to fix. He started pacing. We need to prove that bank account isn't yours. We need to talk to Dr. Morrison and find out who actually paid him, if anyone did. And we need to find out who filed that police complaint. Marlowe's phone rang. The nursing home again. Her heart stopped. Hello. Ms. Bennett, it's Nurse Caroline. The woman's voice was tight with stress. The police were just here. They were asking questions about your father's treatment, about Dr. Morrison, about the payment arrangements. Some of the staff are upset. They're worried about being involved in something illegal. There's nothing illegal happening. Someone's making false accusations. I understand, but the administration is concerned about liability. They're asking that you not visit for the next 48 hours while they sort things out. You're banning me from seeing my father? Not banning. Just requesting that you give them space to handle the investigation without added complications. Caroline sounded genuinely apologetic. I'm sorry, Ms. Bennett. Your father's stable right now. The treatment is working. But the administration is in panic mode. Marlowe hung up and told Caspian what happened. His expression went dark with rage. They're isolating you. Cutting you off from your support systems, making you look guilty, forcing you into a defensive position. He ran a hand through his hair. This is exactly how my father operates. I've seen him destroy competitors this way. Build a case out of lies and manufactured evidence, then watch them collapse trying to defend themselves. So what do? We go on offense. Caspian's eyes were hard. We find out who opened that bank account. We talk to Dr. Morrison directly. And we expose whoever's behind this before they can do any more damage. A knock at the door made them both jump. Marlowe looked through the peephole and saw Kenna standing in the hallway, holding a bottle of wine and a bag of takeout food. She opened the door. How did you know I needed you? Because you always need me when everything goes to hell. Kenna came inside, then stopped when she saw Caspian. Oh, you're here. This is Caspian, Marlowe said. Caspian, my best friend Kenna. The one who set up the blind date, Caspian said. Thanks for that, by the way. You're welcome. Kenna looked between them, clearly trying to read the room. Okay, what happened? You both look like someone died. Marlowe gave her the abbreviated version. Kenna's expression went from concern to furious. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, she said when Marlowe finished. Anyone who knows you knows you'd never fake something like this. The problem is most people don't know me. They just know what they read online. Then we changed the narrative. Kenna pulled out her own phone. I work in PR, remember? I know how to handle a crisis. This isn't a PR crisis. It's a criminal investigation. It's both. And right now, public opinion matters as much as facts. Maybe more. Kenna started typing. We need to get ahead of this story. Release your father's medical records publicly with his permission. Show bank statements proving you didn't have access to that $50,000. Find witnesses who can verify your character. That's not a bad idea, Caspian said. If we can show the accusations are baseless before the investigation gains traction, we control the story. Marlowe wasn't sure. Going public felt like exposure, like giving ammunition to people who already wanted to destroy her. But staying silent might be worse. I need to think about it, she said. Her phone buzzed with another text. This one from an unknown number, but the message made her blood run cold. Stop now or your father's medical care gets cut off. We can make him disappear from that nursing home before you even realize he's gone. She showed it to Caspian. His face went white with rage. That's a direct threat, he said. We're calling the police. The police think I'm a criminal. Different police. FBI maybe. This crosses lines even my father wouldn't cross. He took a photo of the text. Whoever's behind this just made a mistake. Threatening violence is a lot more serious than financial fraud. But before he could dial, Marlowe's phone rang yet again. Dr. Morrison this time. Dr. Morrison? She answered, confused. I thought the nursing home said. Miss Bennett, I'm so sorry. I've been trying to reach you. His voice was shaking. Someone did pay me $50,000. It showed up in my account a week ago with a note saying it was a donation to help with your father's care. I thought it was from you or Mr. Hale. I reported it to the administration as required, but I never questioned where it came from. You didn't think it was strange? Wealthy benefactors make anonymous donations all the time. I assumed it was legitimate. He paused. But then the police showed up asking questions and I started digging. The payment came from an account in your name, but the account was opened using what looks like stolen identity information. Someone used your social security number and forged documents. Do you know who? No. But the bank is investigating. I've given them everything I have. His voice was heavy with guilt. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Bennett. I never meant for this to cause you problems. It's not your fault. Someone set us both up." After she hung up, she told Caspian and Kenna what Morrison had said. "That's actually good news," Kenna said. "It proves you didn't make the payment. Someone's framing you. It also proves someone has access to Marlowe's personal information," Caspian said grimly. "Social security number, enough details to open a bank account in her name. That's not amateur hour. That's someone with serious resources." "Your father?" Marlowe said. "Or someone working for him?" Caspian's phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. "It's my father. I need to take this." He stepped into the hallway. Through the thin walls, Marlowe could hear his side of the conversation. "What do you want?" "That's a lie and you know it. You can't do that. I'll fight you on this." When he came back in, his expression was stormy. "What did he say?" Marlowe asked. "He's calling an emergency shareholder meeting. He's going to argue that my association with you, someone currently under criminal investigation, makes me unfit to manage family assets. He wants to remove me from all positions in the family business and revoke my access to the trust fund that finances the foundation." "Can he do that?" "If he gets enough shareholders on his side, yes." Caspian sat down heavily. "Without that money, the foundation shuts down. Your father's treatment stops. Everything we've been working toward ends." The room went silent. Marlowe felt the walls closing in. Everything was connected: her reputation, her father's life, the foundation, Caspian's relationship with his family. Pull one thread and it all unraveled. "When's the meeting?" she asked quietly. "Tomorrow morning. 10 o'clock. Then we have 12 hours to figure this out." Kenna stood up. "Okay, here's what we're doing. Marlowe, you're going to write down everything, every detail about how you met Caspian, why you took the job, your father's medical history. We're going to create a timeline that proves you had no opportunity or motive to orchestrate any of this. And I'm going to track down whoever opened that bank account," Caspian added. "I have contacts who can access records the police can't get to quickly. If someone at my father's company did this, I'll find proof." "What about me?" Marlowe asked. "What can I do?" "You can stop looking like a victim," Kenna said bluntly. "I know this is overwhelming. I know it's scary. But right now, you need to be the person who stood up to a billionaire in a restaurant because it was the right thing to do. That person doesn't back down." Marlowe took a shaky breath. Kenna was right. She'd spent her career fighting systems that tried to crush vulnerable people. She wasn't going to let herself become a victim of those same systems now. "Okay," she said. "Let's fight back." They worked through the night. Marlowe documented everything while Kenna crafted a public statement and Caspian made phone calls to lawyers, investigators, and anyone else who might help. By 4 in the morning they had a strategy. At 6, Marlowe's phone rang. Eugene's nurse. "Ms. Bennett, your father's awake. He's asking for you. They said I couldn't visit." The administration reversed that decision. Something about new information clearing up concerns. "You should come now while he's alert." Marlowe and Caspian drove to the nursing home as the sun was rising. Eugene was sitting up in bed, looking weak but alive. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "Baby girl," he said, his voice raspy. "They told me there's been some trouble." Marlowe sat beside his bed and took his hand. "Nothing we can't handle. That's my girl." He looked at Caspian. "You must be the billionaire everyone's talking about." "Eugene Bennett, I presume," Caspian said, shaking his hand carefully. "Your daughter's been fighting the world on your behalf. She's always been a fighter. Gets it from her old man." Eugene smiled, but it faded quickly. "Marlowe, I need to tell you something. About your mother." Marlowe stiffened. Eugene never talked about her mother. Not in 20 years. "Dad, you should rest." "No. Listen. Your mother left because she was sick. Not physically. In her head. She had depression so bad she couldn't get out of bed some days. Back then, people didn't talk about mental health like they do now. She thought you'd be better off without her dragging you down." He paused, breathing heavily. "She wrote you letters. Dozens of them over the years. I kept them in a box in my apartment. The nursing home has them now in my personal belongings." Tears streamed down Marlowe's face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was angry at her for leaving. For choosing her illness over us. It took me years to understand she didn't choose it. She was sick and she thought she was protecting you." His grip tightened on her hand. "But you need to know she loved you. She never stopped loving you." Marlowe couldn't speak. 20 years of believing her mother had abandoned her without looking back, and now this. "Why are you telling me this now?" she managed. Because when you think you're dying, you realize what matters. And what matters is truth. Even when it hurts. Eugene looked at Caspian. She's going to need someone when I'm gone. You seem like a decent man. Are you decent enough to be there for her? Dad. I'm not dying today, Eugene said. That treatment's working. But eventually my time comes. And I need to know she won't be alone. Caspian met his eyes. She won't be. You have my word. Eugene nodded, satisfied. Good. Now get out of here. You have a meeting to get to. And Marlo? Stop letting rich people push you around. You're stronger than all of them combined. They left the nursing home at 7:30. The shareholder meeting was in 2.5 hours. They went back to Marlo's apartment so she could shower and change into something presentable. While she was getting ready, her phone buzzed with a news alert. She opened it and felt her stomach drop. Breaking. Anonymous source leaks evidence of Hale Foundation fraud. Founder's son implicated in scheme with girlfriend. The article was worse than the last one. It claimed to have bank records showing that Caspian had helped Marlo orchestrate the fraud, that they'd planned the whole thing together to siphon money from the foundation. Caspian, she called out. He came into her bedroom, took one look at her face and grabbed the phone. His expression went dark as he read. This is a coordinated attack. They're not just coming after you anymore. They're trying to take us both down. Your father? That even if I survive the shareholder vote, the foundation's reputation is destroyed. Caspian's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. He'd rather burn everything to the ground than let me honor my mother's memory. Marlo finished getting dressed. A simple black dress that was professional without trying too hard. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the exhausted woman staring back. I'm going to that meeting with you, she said. Marlo, that's not a good idea. The shareholders need to see that I'm not some con artist hiding in the shadows. They need to see that I'm a real person who's being targeted by someone with resources and a vendetta. She turned to face him. Your father thinks he can scare me away. Let's show him exactly how wrong he is. Caspian studied her face, then nodded slowly. Okay. But when things get ugly, and they will, you don't engage. You stay calm, professional, and let me handle my father. Deal. They drove to Hale Industries headquarters, a massive glass tower in downtown Boston. The building screamed wealth and power in a way that made Marlo's skin crawl. This was Thaddeus Hale's kingdom, and they were walking right into it. The shareholder meeting was on the 40th floor. When they stepped off the elevator, Valencia was waiting in the hallway. Caspian, we need to talk, she said, ignoring Marlo completely. Not interested, Caspian replied, walking past her. Valencia grabbed his arm. Your father's going to destroy you in there. I can help you if you just listen. I said not interested. He pulled away from her grip. And if you're working with my father, you're my enemy. So get out of my way. Valencia's expression hardened. She looked at Marlo with pure hatred. You really think you can win against Thaddeus Hale? He's crushed people with 10 times your resources. You're nothing to him. Maybe, Marlo said calmly. But I'm something to Caspian. And that makes me your problem. They walked into the conference room. It was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and a table that could seat 30 people. About 20 shareholders were already there, all of them in expensive suits, all of them looking at Marlo like she was something they'd scraped off their shoes. Thaddeus sat at the head of the table. When he saw Marlo, his expression went cold. This is a private shareholder meeting, he said. Ms. Bennett has no business here. She's here because the accusations against her are part of your agenda, Caspian replied. And the shareholders deserve to hear her side before you fill their heads with lies. I'm not the one being investigated for fraud. No, you're just the one orchestrating it. The room went silent. Several shareholders exchanged uncomfortable glances. Thaddeus smiled coldly. That's a serious accusation, son. I hope you have evidence. I do. Caspian pulled out his laptop and connected it to the room's display screen. Over the past 72 hours, someone has been conducting a coordinated campaign to discredit both Marlo and the Foundation. Anonymous texts, leaked documents, false police reports. I traced the source of these attacks to an IP address registered to Hale Industries. He pulled up the evidence. Timestamps, IP addresses, routing information. It was technical and dense, but the conclusion was clear. Someone at this company had been behind everything. That proves nothing, Thaddeus said. Anyone could have accessed our network. True. But only someone with administrative privileges could have accessed the specific servers these attacks came from. Caspian pulled up another screen. And according to your own IT department's logs, only 3 people have those privileges. You, your assistant, and your head of security. Murmurs rippled through the room. This is absurd, Thaddeus said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. You're grasping at straws. Am I? Because I also have evidence that you opened a bank account in Marlowe's name using stolen identity information, and that you authorized a payment to Dr. Morrison specifically to create the appearance of bribery. Caspian's voice was cold and precise. You wanted to shut down the foundation, so you created a scandal designed to destroy the one person who could make it succeed. That's fraud, Father. Actual, prosecutable fraud. The room erupted. Shareholders were on their feet, some shouting questions, others demanding explanations. Thaddeus sat frozen, his face a mask of rage. You have no proof, he said quietly. I have enough to start a formal investigation. And once that happens, everything comes out. Every email, every phone call, every dirty trick you've used to maintain control. Caspian leaned forward. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign from the foundation's board. You're going to drop all attempts to access the trust fund. And you're going to leave Marlowe alone. And if I don't? Then I go to the FBI, the SEC, every regulatory agency that might be interested in how you've abused your position. I'll destroy your reputation the same way you tried to destroy ours. Father and son stared at each other across the table. The room held its breath. Finally, Thaddeus stood. You've made your choice. Don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. He walked out. Valencia hurried after him, shooting one last venomous look at Marlowe. The remaining shareholders sat in stunned silence. Finally, one of them, an older man named Richard, spoke up. Caspian, what you're doing with the foundation, it's good work. Your mother would be proud. You have our support. Others nodded in agreement. Not all of them, but enough. Marlowe felt like she could finally breathe. They'd won. Barely, but they'd won. As they left the building, Caspian's phone buzzed. He looked at it and smiled grimly. Detective Chin. The bank found evidence proving the account in your name was fraudulent. The investigation into you is being dropped. Relief flooded through Marlowe so powerfully her knees almost gave out. It's over? This part is. But my father's not going to just disappear. He'll find another way to come at us. Then we'll deal with it. Marlowe looked up at the massive building behind them. Together. They were walking toward Caspian's car when Marlowe's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a photo attached. The photo showed Caspian and Valencia from last night, outside the shareholder meeting. They were standing very close, Valencia's hand on his arm. The angle made it look intimate, like they were reconciling. Below the photo, he'll always go back to her. She's his world. You're just a project. Marlowe's stomach turned over. She knew it was probably manipulated, knew whoever sent it was trying to mess with her head. But doubt crept in anyway. Because what if it was true? What if she was just another problem for Caspian to solve? Another person he was trying to save out of guilt about his mother? Marlowe? Caspian was looking at her. What's wrong? She showed him the text and photo. His expression darkened. That's from this morning. When she grabbed my arm and I told her to get out of my way. Someone cropped out the part where I pulled away from her. I know. So why do you look like you believe it? Because I don't understand why you're doing all this. Fighting your father, risking your inheritance, defending someone you barely know. Her voice cracked. What if I'm just your latest charity case? Caspian stepped closer. You really think that's what this is? I don't know what to think anymore. He took her phone and deleted the text. Then let me make it clear. You're not a charity case. You're not a project. You're the first person in years who's challenged me to be better, who's seen the worst of me and still believed I could do good in the world. That matters. You matter. Marlowe wanted to believe him. But trust was hard when the ground kept shifting beneath her feet. Before she could respond, a black SUV pulled up beside them. The window rolled down, revealing a man in sunglasses. Marlowe Bennett, he said. Who's asking? Someone who knows the truth about your father. Get in if you want to hear it. Marlowe took a step back from the SUV. Every instinct screamed danger. I'm not getting into a car with a stranger, she said. The man in sunglasses pulled them off. He looked to be in his late 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. There was something familiar about him, though Marlowe couldn't place it. My name is Delaney's brother Marcus, he said. Delaney was your father's friend. And Iris Hale's nurse. Caspian stiffened. Delaney? The nurse who kept records about my mother's treatment. The same. My sister's dead, Miss Bennett. She died 3 days ago. Car accident, according to the police report. But Delaney was the most careful driver I knew. His voice was heavy. Right before she died, she told me she'd sent you information about Iris Hale. Information that could destroy Thaddeus. And now she's gone. Marlowe felt ice in her veins. You think someone killed her? I think my sister knew dangerous secrets and dangerous people found out. Marcus looked between them. She left something for you, Miss Bennett. Something she wanted you to have if anything happened to her. But I'm not handing it over in the middle of a parking lot where anyone could be watching. This could be a trap, Caspian said quietly to Marlowe. Could be. But if he's telling the truth, we need what he has. Marlowe looked at Marcus. Where do you want to meet? There's a diner on Commonwealth Avenue. Murphy's. Meet me there in 30 minutes. Come alone. I'm not sending her anywhere alone, Caspian said. Then she doesn't get what Delaney left for her. Your choice. Marcus started to roll up the window. Wait, Marlowe said. I'll meet you. 30 minutes. Marcus nodded and drove away. Caspian grabbed Marlowe's arm. This is a bad idea. We don't know who this guy really is. If Delaney had information that could prove your father killed your mother. We don't know that's what this is about. This could be another setup. Or it could be the truth. Either way, I'm going. Marlowe met his eyes. Your mother deserves justice. If there's even a chance Delaney knew something that could prove what your father did, we have to take it. Caspian looked like he wanted to argue more but finally nodded. Fine. But I'm coming with you and I'm staying close. If anything feels wrong, we leave immediately. They drove to Murphy's Diner, a rundown place that had probably been serving burnt coffee and mediocre eggs since the 70s. Marcus was already there, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall. Marlowe slid in across from him. Caspian sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. You came together, Marcus observed. I said alone. And I said I'm not letting her meet strange men by herself, Caspian replied. Start talking or we're leaving. Marcus studied them both, then pulled an envelope from his jacket. It was thick, sealed with tape. Delaney kept records. Not just about Iris Hale's medical treatment. About everything. Phone calls between Thaddeus and the doctors. Emails discussing treatment delays. Financial transfers that coincided with missed appointments. He slid the envelope across the table. She knew Thaddeus had deliberately sabotaged his wife's cancer treatment because it interfered with a business deal. She kept evidence for years, waiting for the right time to use it. Why didn't she come forward sooner? Marlowe asked. Because Thaddeus Hale is a powerful man who destroys anyone who crosses him. Delaney was scared. She had a daughter to protect. Marcus's voice thickened. But then she heard about your foundation. About what you were trying to do in Iris's name. She thought maybe there was finally a chance for justice. Caspian took the envelope with shaking hands. What's in here? Issa's fingerprints all over them. Recorded phone conversations. Bank statements showing money changing hands. It's enough to prove what he did. If this is real, it's evidence of negligent homicide, Marlowe said. Maybe even murder. That's why Delaney's dead. Marcus's expression was grim. Someone found out she was going to expose this. They made sure she couldn't. Do you have proof your sister was killed? Caspian asked. Just my gut. And the fact that her car went off the road on a straight stretch she'd driven 1,000 times. No skid marks, no signs of mechanical failure. Just a car that suddenly swerved into a barrier. Marcus leaned forward. I can't prove it. But I know my sister didn't die by accident. Marlowe felt sick. If Thaddeus was willing to kill to keep his secret safe, no one around them was truly safe. Why give this to us? She asked. Why not go to the police yourself? Because going to the police means going through official channels, which means lawyers and delays and a system Thaddeus knows how to manipulate. But you? Marcus looked at Caspian. You're his son. You have access, credibility, motivation. If anyone can make sure this evidence gets used properly, it's you. Caspian opened the envelope and pulled out the first few pages. Marlowe watched his face go pale as he read. These are real, he whispered. These are actual emails from my father to Iris's oncologist. He's telling the doctor to delay scheduling her treatments until after a merger closes. Caspian's voice broke. He's saying it's not urgent, that a few more weeks won't make a difference. But they did make a difference, Marcus said quietly. By the time she finally got consistent treatment, the cancer had spread. She might have lived if she'd gotten proper care from the beginning. Marlowe put her hand on Caspian's arm. He was shaking, his face a mask of barely controlled rage and grief. I'm going to destroy him, Caspian said, his voice cold. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what he did. Be careful, Marcus warned. My sister underestimated how far he'd go to protect himself. Don't make the same mistake. They left the diner with the envelope. Caspian didn't speak during the drive back. He just gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. When they got to Marlowe's apartment, he finally broke. He killed her, Caspian said, his voice raw. My own father killed my mother for a business deal. And I've spent 3 years thinking it was just bad luck, just cancer being cancer. But he could have saved her. He chose not to. Marlowe didn't know what to say. There were no words that could make this better. What do you want to do? She asked instead. I want to go to the police. I want to watch him get arrested. I want him to pay for what he did. Caspian looked at her. But if we do this, it becomes public. My family's name gets dragged through the mud. The foundation gets caught in the crossfire. Your father's treatment could be affected if the trust fund gets frozen during the investigation. None of that matters compared to justice for your mother. You say that now. But if your father loses his treatment because of choices I make, then that's on your father, not you. Marlowe took his hand. Your mother deserves the truth. Whatever consequences come from that, we'll handle them together. Caspian nodded slowly. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Detective Chin? It's Caspian Hale. I have evidence regarding my mother's death 3 years ago. I need to speak with someone in homicide. While he was on the phone, Marlowe went through the rest of the documents. The evidence was damning. Emails, phone records, financial statements, all of it painted a clear picture of Thaddeus deliberately sabotaging his wife's medical care. But there was something else in the envelope. A handwritten letter. Marlowe pulled it out and recognized the handwriting from the foundation planning documents. Iris's handwriting. The letter was addressed to whoever finds this. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone and Delaney has decided the truth needs to come out. I've known for months what Thaddeus is doing. Delaying my treatments. Putting business ahead of my life. Part of me wants to believe it's not malicious, that he simply doesn't understand how urgent this is. But I know my husband. He understands perfectly. He's made a choice. I could confront him. Could force the issue. But if I do, he'll turn it around somehow, make himself the victim. And I'm tired of fighting him. I've been fighting him our entire marriage. Over money, over values, over what kind of man he wants our son to become. So instead I'm leaving a record. Not because I want revenge, but because I want Caspian to know the truth. I want him to understand that kindness matters more than power. That money means nothing if you lose your humanity to get it. Caspian, if you're reading this, and I hope you are, know that I'm proud of you. You've always had a good heart, even when your father tried to harden it. Don't let what he's done to me turn you into him. Don't let anger poison you the way it's poisoned him. Build the foundation we talked about. Help people. Be the man I know you can be. That's how you honor my memory. Not through revenge, but through becoming everything your father isn't. I love you. Always, Mom. Marlowe's vision blurred with tears. She handed the letter to Caspian when he got off the phone. He read it in silence, tears streaming down his face. When he finished, he carefully folded it and put it back in the envelope. She knew, he said. She knew he was doing it, and she let him because she didn't want to fight anymore. She also knew you'd find out eventually. And she wanted you to have a path forward that wasn't just about revenge. Caspian wiped his eyes. The police are sending someone to take my statement. They'll open an investigation based on this evidence. What about the foundation? The foundation continues. That's what she wanted. He looked at Marlowe. But it's going to get messy. My father will fight this with everything he has. There'll be media attention, legal battles, people trying to discredit us at every turn. We've been dealing with that since day one. This is different. This is murder. Or at least negligent homicide. It's going to consume everything. Marlowe thought about Eugene in that nursing home bed. About the kids in foster care who needed advocates. About Iris's vision for a foundation that actually helped people. Then we make it mean something, she said. We make sure your mother's death leads to something good. Not just revenge like she said. Real change. Caspian pulled her into a hug. It surprised her. He'd always been so carefully professional. But right now he just seemed like a man who'd lost his mother and was trying not to fall apart. Thank you, he whispered. For being here. For not running when things got complicated. Where else would I be? They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Marlowe's phone rang. The nursing home. Again. She answered with her heart in her throat. Hello. Ms. Bennett, you need to come now. Your father's coding. We're doing everything we can, but... The line went dead. Marlowe's legs gave out. Caspian caught her before she hit the floor. What happened? My dad. He's coding. I need to get there. They ran to the car. Caspian drove like the devil was chasing them, running lights and weaving through traffic. Marlowe couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. All she could see was her father's face, telling her to stop letting pride kill them both. They made it to Whispering Pines in 15 minutes. Marlowe ran through the halls, Caspian right behind her. Room 312. The door was closed. A nurse stood outside, her expression somber. Miss Bennett? Is he alive? He's stable. Barely. He coded twice, but we got him back both times. The doctor's with him now. Marlowe pushed past her into the room. Eugene lay motionless on the bed, machines beeping frantically around him. Dr. Morrison was adjusting settings, his face grim. What happened? Marlowe demanded. The treatment was working. His body was responding. But then something triggered a massive cardiac event. Morrison looked up. Ms. Bennett, I need to ask you something. Has your father been under unusual stress lately? He's dying. That's stressful enough. No, I mean acute stress. Something that would cause his blood pressure to spike suddenly. Marlowe thought about the past few days. The investigation, the accusations, the media storm. Eugene had said the nursing home staff told him there was trouble. Someone might have told him about the fraud allegations, she said quietly. About me being accused of faking his illness. Morrison's expression darkened. That kind of stress, for someone in his condition, it could absolutely trigger what we saw today. So whoever made those accusations almost killed him. In a manner of speaking, yes. Rage filled Marlowe, hot and consuming. Thaddeus hadn't just killed his own wife. He'd nearly killed her father too. She turned to Caspian. I want him destroyed. Not just arrested. Destroyed. Marlowe? No. He's taken everything from both of us. Your mother. Almost my father. He needs to pay for all of it. Before Caspian could respond, the door opened. 2 police officers stepped in, followed by Detective Chin. Mr. Hale, Miss Bennett, we need you both to come with us. What? Why? Marlowe asked. We have some questions about Marcus Delaney. He was found dead in his apartment an hour ago. Apparent suicide. Chen's expression was unreadable. And according to his phone records, you were the last people to see him alive. The police station interrogation room was exactly like every crime show had ever depicted it. Gray walls, metal table, uncomfortable chairs, and a mirror that was obviously two-way glass. Marlowe sat on one side with her hands folded, trying to look calm even though her heart was racing. Detective Chin sat across from her, a notepad open. Another detective, a man named Rodriguez, stood by the door. Let's go through this again, Chin said. You met Marcus Delaney at Murphy's Diner at approximately 11:45 this morning. What did you discuss? I already told you. He gave us evidence about Thaddeus Hale's involvement in his wife's death. And then what happened? We left. That's it. You didn't threaten him? Didn't suggest he should keep quiet about what his sister knew? Marlowe's hands clenched. Why would we do that? He was helping us. Or maybe he was blackmailing you. Maybe he wanted money in exchange for those documents, and when you refused, things got violent. That's ridiculous. We left him alive and well in that diner. Chin slid a photo across the table. It showed Marcus's apartment, or what was left of it. Furniture overturned, papers scattered everywhere, and Marcus's body hanging from a ceiling beam. Marlowe looked away feeling sick. Suicide note said he couldn't live with the guilt of his sister's death, Chin said. Said he blamed himself for not protecting her. Or someone staged it to look like suicide. That's convenient. Everyone who might cause problems for you either dies or nearly dies. Chin leaned forward. Your father codes the same day Marcus gives you evidence against Thaddeus Hale. Marcus dies hours after meeting with you. Iris Hale died 3 years ago under suspicious circumstances. You see the pattern I'm seeing? I see you trying to pin murders on victims instead of investigating the actual killer. And who would that be? Thaddeus Hale. He's been behind everything, the attacks on me, the fake fraud allegations, all of it. Now people who threaten him are turning up dead. That's a serious accusation. Do you have proof? I have the evidence Marcus gave us. Emails, phone records. Which could have been fabricated. Digital evidence can be manipulated. Marlowe wanted to scream. Instead, she forced herself to stay calm. Check the diner's security cameras. They'll show we left Marcus alive. We're checking. But here's the thing, Ms. Bennett. You have motive. Thaddeus Hale has been trying to shut down the foundation you work for. Marcus's sister had evidence that could help you fight back. If Marcus was threatening to withhold that evidence unless you paid him. He wasn't. He gave us everything freely because he wanted justice for his sister. So you say. They went in circles for another hour. Finally, Chin called a break. She left Marlo alone in the interrogation room, probably watching through the two-way mirror to see if she'd do something suspicious. Marlo put her head in her hands. This was a nightmare that kept getting worse. The door opened. A lawyer walked in, elegant, professional, carrying an expensive briefcase. Miss Bennett, my name is Rebecca Walsh. Mr. Hale hired me to represent you. Is Caspian okay? He's in another interrogation room. Also refusing to answer questions without counsel present, which is smart. Rebecca sat down. Here's where we are. The police don't have enough to charge either of you with anything yet. Marcus's death looks suspicious, but without physical evidence tying you to the scene, they're fishing. However, they can hold you for 48 hours while they investigate. I need to get out of here. My father's in the hospital. I know. I'm working on it. Rebecca pulled out papers. In the meantime, don't answer any more questions without me present. Don't speculate about Thaddeus Hale's involvement. Just stay quiet and let me handle this. The door opened again. Detective Chin came back in, but this time she looked less hostile. You're free to go, she said. Both of you. What changed? Rebecca asked. Diner's security footage confirms your story. And we found evidence at Marcus Delaney's apartment suggesting someone else was there. Fingerprints that don't match anyone who should have been in that apartment. Chin looked at Marlo. You're still persons of interest in this investigation, so don't leave town. But we're pursuing other leads. Marlo didn't wait to be told twice. She practically ran out of the interrogation room. Caspian was waiting in the hallway with his own lawyer. Are you okay? He asked immediately. Fine. We need to get to the hospital. They drove to Whispering Pines in Rebecca's car since Caspian's was still at the police station. Eugene was still alive, still fighting. Dr. Morrison said his condition had stabilized, but it was touch and go. Marlo sat by his bedside, holding his hand. He was unconscious now, sedated to help his heart recover from the trauma. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered. This is all my fault. I should have protected you from all of this. Caspian stood in the doorway, giving her space but staying close enough that she wasn't alone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Kenna. News is reporting Marcus Delaney's death. They're connecting it to you and Caspian. This is getting out of control. Call me. Marlo silenced her phone. She couldn't deal with the outside world right now. Not while her father was fighting for his life. Hours passed. Nurses came and went, checking vitals and adjusting medications. Dr. Morrison stopped by twice to reassure Marlo that Eugene was stable, that the treatment was still working despite the setback. At some point, Caspian brought her coffee and a sandwich from the cafeteria. She didn't remember eating it, but the wrapper was empty when she looked down. You should go home, Marlo said finally. Get some rest. I'm not leaving you here alone. Caspian. Marlo. He pulled a chair next to hers and sat down. My mother died in a hospital room while I was at a business meeting I thought was too important to miss. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to be there when she needed me. His voice was rough. I'm not making that mistake again. Not with you, not with your father. So I'm staying. She didn't have the energy to argue. Instead, she leaned her head on his shoulder. He didn't pull away. Around midnight, Eugene's eyes fluttered open. Marlo sat up immediately. Dad? Can you hear me? Eugene's gaze found her face. He tried to speak, but the breathing tube prevented it. His hand squeezed hers weakly. Don't try to talk. Just rest. You're going to be okay. But Eugene shook his head slightly, his eyes urgent. He was trying to tell her something. What is it? Marlo asked. He looked past her to Caspian, then back to her. His expression was clear even without words. Don't let him blame himself. I won't, Marlo promised. Now stop worrying about everyone else and focus on getting better. Eugene's eyes closed again, but there was something peaceful in his expression now. Like he'd said what he needed to say. Dr. Morrison came in shortly after. His vitals are improving. The sedation is helping his heart recover. I think he's going to pull through this. Relief flooded through Marlo so powerfully she almost collapsed. You're sure? As sure as I can be. He's not out of the woods yet, but he's fighting. Your father's a strong man, Miss Bennett. After Morrison left, Marlo finally let herself cry. Not the quiet tears she'd been holding back, but full body-shaking sobs. Caspian pulled her close and let her fall apart against him. "He's going to be okay," Caspian murmured. "You both are." When she cried herself out, Marlowe pulled back and wiped her face. "I'm sorry. I don't usually." "You don't have to apologize for being human." Her phone rang. "Detective Chin." Marlowe answered with trepidation. "Yes. Miss Bennett, we've made an arrest in Marcus Delaney's death. The fingerprints we found at his apartment match someone in our system, a private investigator named Derek Walsh who's done work for Hale Industries. He's confessed to killing Marcus on Thaddeus Hale's orders." Marlowe's breath caught. "He confessed. Once we showed him the evidence, he cracked pretty quickly. Said Thaddeus paid him to retrieve the documents Marcus was planning to give you. When Marcus refused to hand them over, things got violent. Walsh made it look like suicide, but he's not a professional. Left traces everywhere." "What about Thaddeus? Are you arresting him?" "We're building the case. Walsh's confession gives us probable cause, but we need to connect all the dots. Thaddeus's lawyers are already circling." Chin paused. "But I wanted you to know, you and Mr. Hale are no longer suspects in anything. You were right about being targeted." After she hung up, Marlowe told Caspian what Detective Chen had said. His expression went dark. "They're going to arrest my father. For murder. For all of it. This is going to destroy my family's reputation. Everything my grandfather built, everything the Hale name means, it's all going to be associated with what my father did." "Is that really what you're worried about right now?" Marlowe asked. "No. I'm worried about the foundation. About what happens when the media connects the dots between my father's crimes and the charity work we're trying to do." He stood up and started pacing. "People are going to question everything. They're going to assume we're all corrupt, that the foundation is just another Hale family scam. Then we prove them wrong. We show them the work we're doing is real. How? How do we rebuild trust when everything around us is falling apart?" Marlowe didn't have an answer. She was too exhausted, too overwhelmed to think strategically. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. "Breaking. Thaddeus Hale, CEO of Hale Industries, arrested in connection with multiple deaths. Investigation ongoing into possible murder charges." The story was already going viral. Social media was exploding with reactions. Some people were shocked. Others weren't surprised at all. Apparently there'd been rumors about Thaddeus's ruthlessness for years. And inevitably Marlowe's name was being dragged into it. Headlines speculated about her relationship with Caspian, about whether she'd known about the crimes, about whether the foundation was involved. "They're going to come after us," Marlowe said quietly. "The media, the investigators, everyone. They're going to pick apart every decision we've made. Let them. We have nothing to hide. Don't we?" Marlowe met his eyes. "Your father paid for my dad's treatment to get me to work for the foundation. That looks like bribery now, even though it wasn't. The timing of everything, the way we started working together right after these deaths, it all looks suspicious." Caspian sank back into his chair. "So what do? We tell the truth. All of it. We release every document, every financial record, every decision we've made. Complete transparency. That could backfire. People will find things to criticize no matter what we show them. Maybe. But at least they won't be able to say we're hiding something." Marlowe's phone buzzed with another call. Kenna again. This time she answered. "I'm okay," she said before Kenna could ask. "Dad's stable. We're at the hospital. Thank God. Marlowe, the news is insane right now. You need to get ahead of this story before it gets worse." "How? What am I supposed to say?" "The truth. Do an interview. Explain what happened, why you took the job, how you got caught in the middle of Thaddeus's crimes." Kenna's PR instincts were in full force. "I can set something up with a sympathetic journalist. Someone who'll let you tell your story properly." Marlowe looked at Caspian. He nodded slowly. "Okay," Marlowe said. "Set it up. I'll call you back in an hour with details. And Marlowe, you're going to get through this. You're the strongest person I know." After hanging up, Marlowe checked on her father one more time. He was sleeping peacefully now, his vitals steady on the monitors. "I need to tell him everything," she said to Caspian. "When he wakes up properly, I need to explain what happened. What we're dealing with. He's going to tell you to quit. To walk away from all of this. Probably. But I'm not going to listen." She turned to face Caspian. "I meant what I said earlier. Your mother deserves justice. The foundation deserves to continue. I'm not running just because things got hard. Even if it costs you everything?" What's it going to cost me? My reputation? I didn't have much of one to begin with. My career? I was on forced leave anyway. She smiled grimly. I've got nothing to lose and everything to fight for. That makes me dangerous. Caspian looked at her with something like awe. You really mean that? Every word. His phone rang. Rebecca, his lawyer. Mr. Hale, the district attorney wants to meet with you tomorrow morning. They have questions about your father's activities and your knowledge of them. I'll be there with you, but you need to prepare yourself. This is going to be intense. I understand, Caspian said. I'll cooperate fully with whatever they need. After the call ended, he looked exhausted. The events of the past few days were catching up with him. When's the last time you slept? Marlowe asked. I don't remember. There's a waiting room down the hall with couches. Go get some rest. I'll wake you if anything changes with my dad. What about you? I'll be fine here. Caspian hesitated, then nodded. 2 hours. Wake me in 2 hours whether anything happens or not. He left, and Marlowe was alone with her father and the steady beeping of hospital machines. She thought about everything that had happened since that blind date 5 days ago. 5 days. That's all it had been. Less than a week, and her entire life had been turned upside down. She'd gone from a social worker with a stable if unremarkable life to the center of a murder investigation involving one of Boston's most powerful families. She'd watched her father nearly die twice. She'd seen evidence of cruelty and corruption that made her previous exposure to the system's flaws look minor by comparison. And through all of it, Caspian had been there. Fighting beside her, protecting her, trusting her even when everyone else thought she was a con artist. Was she falling for him? The thought scared her more than any of Thaddeus's threats. She barely knew him. They'd been thrown together by circumstance and crisis. Whatever feelings were developing between them, and something was definitely developing, might not survive once things calmed down. If they ever calmed down. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. She almost ignored it, but the sender's name made her look. Valencia Ashford. Against her better judgment, Marlowe opened it. Miss Bennett? I know you have no reason to trust me, and honestly, I don't blame you. I've been awful to you from the moment we met. But I need to tell you something about Caspian that you deserve to know before you get in any deeper. 2 years ago, when we were engaged, I discovered he was seeing someone else. A social worker, actually, like you. He claimed it was innocent, that they were just friends, but I saw the way he looked at her. The same way he looks at you now. Here's what you need to understand about Caspian. He has a savior complex. He's drawn to women who need saving, who have problems he can solve with his money and influence. That social worker had student loans he paid off. Medical bills he covered. And once he'd fixed her life, he lost interest. She became just another person he'd helped, not someone he actually loved. You're the same pattern. Your father's illness, your financial struggles, your career troubles, you're the perfect project for him. And once he's solved all your problems, he'll move on to the next person who needs saving. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I'm telling you this because I wasted 2 years of my life waiting for him to love me the way he loved fixing people's problems. Don't make the same mistake. Valencia. Marlowe stared at the email, feeling cold spreading through her chest. Was it true? Was she just another project for Caspian? She thought about how quickly he'd offered to pay for Eugene's treatment. How he'd hired her within days of meeting her. How every interaction between them seemed to involve him solving her problems or protecting her from threats. Maybe Valencia was lying. Maybe this was just another attempt to drive them apart. But what if it wasn't? Marlowe's hand hovered over her phone, ready to delete the email and forget she'd ever read it. But she couldn't. The doubt had already taken root. A nurse came in to check Eugene's vitals, breaking Marlowe's spiral of thoughts. How is he? Marlowe asked. Getting stronger by the hour. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He's fighting hard. After the nurse left, Eugene's eyes opened again. This time he seemed more alert, more present. Dad? How are you feeling? Eugene managed a weak smile around the breathing tube. He gestured toward the pen and notepad on his bedside table. Marlowe handed them to him. He wrote slowly, his hands shaking. Stop worrying about me. Go fix your own life. My life is fine. Eugene underlined the word fine, and added a question mark. Okay, it's complicated. But I can handle it. He wrote again, that boy loves you. Don't sabotage it. Dad. I see how he looks at you. How you look at him. Life's too short for doubt. You don't understand. There's so much happening. His father's been arrested. People died. Everything's a mess. Eugene wrote one more thing. All the more reason to hold on to what matters. Before Marlo could respond, voices erupted in the hallway. Loud, angry voices. She went to the door and looked out. Caspian was there, facing off against Valencia. Both of them looked furious. "You had no right to contact her," Caspian was saying. "I had every right. She deserves to know what kind of person you really are." "What kind of person? Someone who actually cares about helping people? Someone who doesn't use relationships as leverage for social climbing?" Valencia's face flushed red. "I loved you. And you threw that away for your mother's ridiculous charity project. You loved my money and my name. Not me. There's a difference." Marlo stepped into the hallway. Both of them turned to look at her. "Marlo," Caspian said, "whatever she told you, was it true?" Marlo cut him off. "About the social worker. About you paying off her debts and then losing interest once you'd fixed her life." Caspian's expression shifted to something like guilt. "It's not that simple." "So it's true." "Part of it. Yes, I dated someone who worked in social services. Yes, I helped her financially. But we didn't break up because I lost interest. We broke up because she decided she couldn't be in a relationship where money was such an imbalance. She felt like she owed me, and it destroyed the foundation of what we had." "That's not what I heard," Valencia interjected. "Because you were jealous and you twisted the story to fit your narrative." Caspian's voice was hard. "You've been doing that since we broke up. Rewriting history so you're the victim and I'm the villain." "Children," a new voice said sharply. All three of them turned to see a woman in her 70s approaching. She was elegant, with white hair styled perfectly and clothes that screamed old money. "This is a hospital. Take your drama elsewhere." "Mrs. Ashford," Caspian said, his tone shifting to something more respectful. "I didn't know you were here. I'm visiting a friend. And I walk out to find my daughter making a scene." The woman looked at Valencia with disappointment. "I thought we discussed this. You were supposed to let this go." "Mother." "No. Enough." Mrs. Ashford turned to Marlo. "You must be the young woman everyone's talking about." Marlo Bennett. "Yes, ma'am. I knew Iris Hale. She was a dear friend." Mrs. Ashford's expression softened. "She would have been proud of what you're trying to do with her foundation. Don't let my daughter's jealousy or Thaddeus's crimes derail that work." "Thank you," Marlo managed. Mrs. Ashford took Valencia's arm. "Come along. You've caused enough trouble." Valencia shot one last venomous look at Marlo and Caspian before allowing herself to be led away. Once they were gone, Marlo and Caspian stood in the hallway in awkward silence. "Are we really going to do this now?" Caspian asked. "Have the conversation where you question my motives and I try to convince you I'm not just using you as a charity project?" "I don't know what we're doing," Marlo admitted. "I don't know what any of this is. 5 days ago we were strangers. Now we're, what? Partners? Friends? Something more?" "I'd like it to be something more," Caspian said quietly. "But I understand if you need time to figure out what you want." "Do you have a savior complex?" The question came out more bluntly than Marlo intended. Caspian thought about it for a long moment. "Maybe. Probably. My mother spent her life helping people, and I watched her light up every time she made a difference in someone's life. I think I've been chasing that feeling ever since she died. Trying to fill the hole she left by being useful to people. That's not the same as actually caring about them." "No, it's not. But Marlo, I care about you. Not because you need help. Not because fixing your problems makes me feel better about myself. I care about you because you're brilliant and fierce and you don't back down even when you probably should. Because you called me out for being terrible when we first met, and you've been calling me out ever since." He smiled slightly. "You don't let me get away with anything. That's not something I want to lose." Marlo wanted to believe him. But trust was complicated when so much was happening so fast. "I need to think," she said finally. "About all of this. About us, about the foundation, about everything." "Okay. Take all the time you need." He started to walk away but Marlo caught his arm. "Where are you going?" "To give you space. Like you asked." "I didn't ask you to leave. I just..." She struggled to find the right words. "Don't go far. Please." Something shifted in his expression. "I won't. I promise." They went back into Eugene's room together. Her father was asleep again, but his vitals were stronger. The crisis had passed. Marlo's phone buzzed. "Kenna. Interview is set for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Journalist's name is Amanda Cross. She's tough but fair. I'm sending you prep notes now. Tomorrow." Marlo would have to tell her story to the world. Explain how she'd ended up in the middle of a murder investigation. Try to salvage what was left of her reputation and the Foundation's mission. But tonight, she just sat beside her father's bed with Caspian nearby, and tried to believe that somehow, they were all going to survive this. Outside the window, dawn was breaking. A new day. New challenges. And somewhere in Boston, Thaddeus Hale sat in a jail cell, facing charges that would destroy everything he'd built. Justice, Marlowe thought, looked different than she'd expected. It wasn't clean or simple. It was messy and painful, and it cost more than anyone wanted to pay. But it was still worth fighting for. Her phone buzzed one more time. An unknown number. Against her better judgment, she opened the message. It was a photo. Recent from the look of it. It showed a young woman, maybe 25, standing outside the Foundation office. She had dark hair and kind eyes, and she was holding a folder. Below the photo, her name is Sophie. Remember her? The waitress from the restaurant where you first met Caspian? She has information about that night. Information that changes everything you think you know. Meet her tomorrow at 10 a.m. Corner of Commonwealth in Berkeley. Come alone or she won't talk. Marlowe stared at the message, her mind racing. Sophie. The waitress Caspian had humiliated, then apologized to. The girl who disappeared from the story after that first night. What could she possibly know that would change everything? And more importantly, was this another trap, or was someone finally telling the truth? 10 o'clock in the morning, and Marlowe stood on the corner of Commonwealth and Berkeley, scanning faces in the crowd. Boston moved around her, students rushing to class, professionals clutching coffee cups, tourists stopping to take photos of the historic brownstones. She told Caspian she had errands to run. Not quite a lie, but not the truth either. The message had said to come alone, and something told her Sophie wouldn't talk if Marlowe brought backup. A young woman approached from across the street. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, nervous eyes that kept darting around. Sophie. She was prettier than Marlowe remembered from that night at the restaurant. Younger too, without the makeup and uniform hiding her features. Miss Bennett? Sophie's voice was barely above a whisper. Call me Marlowe. You're Sophie, right? The girl nodded. Can we walk? I don't want to stand in one place too long. They started walking down Commonwealth Avenue, past elegant buildings and perfectly manicured trees. Sophie kept her hands shoved in her jacket pockets, her shoulders hunched like she was trying to make herself invisible. Who sent you that message? Marlowe asked. About meeting me here? I did. Through a friend's phone. I couldn't risk anyone tracing it back to me. Why all the secrecy? Sophie glanced around again before answering. Because I was paid to lie about that night. The night you met Mr. Hale. Marlowe's heart skipped. Paid by who? A woman. Elegant, expensive clothes, cold eyes. She came to the restaurant 2 days before your date. Said she'd give me $5,000 if I do exactly what she told me. Valencia, Marlowe said. She never told me her name. But she showed me a photo of Mr. Hale and told me he'd be dining there on a specific night. She said I should mess up his order. Spill something on him if I could. Make him angry enough that he'd cause a scene. The pieces started clicking into place in Marlowe's mind. She set him up. She wanted him to look bad. Not just bad. She wanted him to humiliate me so you'd see it. She knew you were going to be there. Knew you were his blind date. Sophie's voice cracked. She said you had a reputation for standing up for people. That you'd definitely intervene if you saw him being cruel to me. Marlowe stopped walking. The whole thing was staged? Not all of it. Mr. Hale really was upset about something. The water thing was real. I did bring him tap instead of sparkling by accident. But when he got annoyed, I pushed it. Made it worse. Acted more hurt than I was so you'd feel like you had to step in. Sophie looked miserable. I'm so sorry. I needed the money. My mom's sick and I've got bills I can't pay. $5,000 seemed like a miracle. Did she tell you why she wanted this? She said Mr. Hale needed to be taught a lesson. That he was engaged to her and planning to embarrass her publicly, and she wanted revenge. Sophie shook her head. I didn't know about any of the other stuff. The murders, the investigation, all of it. When I saw the news, I realized I'd been part of something way bigger than I understood. People passed them on the sidewalk, oblivious to the bombshell being dropped. Marlowe's mind raced through implications. If Valencia had orchestrated that first meeting, what else had she manipulated? The paparazzi outside the restaurant, had she tipped them off? The photos that went viral, had she made sure they were taken? Why are you telling me this now? Marlowe asked. Because you don't deserve what's happening to you. I've been watching the news, reading the articles. Everyone's calling you a gold digger, saying you manipulated Mr. Hale. But I was the one doing the manipulating. Not you. Sophie pulled a phone from her pocket. I recorded our conversation. The woman who paid me, she didn't know I was recording. I thought maybe I'd need proof someday that I wasn't acting alone. She handed the phone to Marlo. There was a video file queued up. Marlo pressed play. The video showed Sophie from a low angle like the phone was hidden in her purse. Across from her sat Valencia, looking polished and cold in an expensive restaurant. Valencia's voice came through clearly, "You'll make sure he loses his temper. I don't care how you do it. Mess up his order, be slow with service, whatever it takes. And when his date intervenes, because she will, you play the victim. Make it look as bad as possible." "What if she doesn't intervene?" Sophie's voice asked. "She will. I've done my research." Marlo Bennett can't resist defending people she thinks are being mistreated. It's her fatal flaw. The video ended. Marlo stared at the phone, stunned. This was evidence. Proof that their entire relationship had started as Valencia's manipulation. "I'll testify if you need me to," Sophie said. "I'll tell the police everything. I know it might get me in trouble, but it's the right thing to do." "Keep the recording safe," Marlo said. "Make copies. Send it to people you trust. And yes, we'll need you to talk to the police. But not yet." "Why not?" "Because Valencia's connected to Thaddeus Hale's crimes. If we expose her too soon, she might destroy evidence or disappear. We need to be strategic." Marlo met Sophie's eyes. "How much of that 5,000 do you still have?" Sophie looked ashamed. "Most of it. I couldn't bring myself to spend it. It felt dirty." "Keep it. You earned it by coming forward now. Use it to help your mom." "I don't want blood money." "Then think of it as payment for doing the right thing." Marlo handed the phone back. "Stay safe. Don't tell anyone we talked. And if Valencia or anyone else contacts you, call me immediately." She gave Sophie her number, and the girl disappeared into the morning crowd. Marlo stood on the sidewalk, mind spinning. Everything she'd believed about how she and Caspian met was a lie. Their first interaction, the moment that had set everything else in motion, had been manufactured by Valencia's jealousy and manipulation. But did that change anything? The feelings that had developed since then, were they real or just products of the trauma they'd been through together? Her phone rang. "Caspian. Where are you?" he asked. "I thought you were running errands, but you've been gone for hours." Had it been hours? Marlo checked the time. 11:30. The interview with Amanda Cross was in 2.5 hours. "I'm on Commonwealth. I'll be back soon." "Marlo, is something wrong? You sound strange." "I just learned something. About how we met. About that first night." She paused. "Valencia paid Sophie to provoke you. The whole scene was staged so I'd intervene and you'd look bad." Silence on the other end. "Caspian? I'm here. I'm just processing." His voice was tight. "Valencia orchestrated our meeting?" "Looks that way." "That's insane. Even for her, that's..." He stopped. "Actually, no. It's exactly something she'd do. She always needed to control everything." "Does it change anything? Knowing our relationship started as someone else's manipulation? Does it change anything for you?" he countered. Marlo thought about the past week. The foundation work, fighting beside Caspian against his father, sitting in hospital rooms and police stations. None of that had been staged. None of that had been anyone's plan but theirs. "No," she said finally. "It doesn't change anything." "Good. Because it doesn't change anything for me either. Valencia might have manufactured that first moment, but everything since then has been real." He paused. "Where are you exactly?" "I'm coming to get you. Commonwealth and Berkeley. Stay there. 5 minutes." He arrived in 4, pulling up to the curb with the kind of urgency that made other drivers honk. Marlo climbed into the passenger seat. "We need to tell the police about Sophie," Caspian said immediately. "Not yet. If we tip our hand too early, Valencia might run or destroy evidence. She's already connected to my father's crimes. The police are probably investigating her anyway. Probably isn't definitely. I want to make sure we have everything lined up before we move." Marlo pulled out her own phone. "But first, we have that interview in 2 hours. We need to decide what we're going to say." They drove to a coffee shop near the interview location. Kenna was already there, laptop open, looking stressed. "There you are," she said when they walked in. "I've been calling you both. The story's getting worse by the hour." She turned her laptop to show them. The headlines were brutal. Billionaire heir and girlfriend silent on father's murder charges. Hale Foundation under investigation. Fraud allegations surface. Sources say Marlo Bennett knew about Thaddeus Hale's crimes. None of that is true, Marlowe said. Doesn't matter. It's what people are reading. It's what they're believing. Kenna pulled up social media. The comments were vicious, calling Marlowe everything from a gold digger to an accomplice to murder. This interview needs to change the narrative. You need to be sympathetic, honest, and completely transparent. What if I told you our entire relationship started as a setup? Marlowe said. Kenna blinked. Excuse me? Marlowe explained about Sophie, the recording, Valencia's manipulation. Kenna's expression went from shock to calculating. This is good, she said finally. This is really good. How is any of this good? Caspian asked. Because it makes you both victims. Not just of Thaddeus's crimes but of Valencia's jealousy. It humanizes you. Shows that you've been targeted from the very beginning by people with resources and bad intentions. Kenna started typing furiously. We bring this up in the interview. Show the recording. Let people see that you were manipulated into this situation. I'm not sure we should reveal that yet, Marlowe said. If Valencia knows we have evidence against her, she'll lawyer up and stop talking. I know. But consider this. The interview airs, people see you as victims, public opinion shifts. Then, when the police arrest Valencia, it confirms everything you said. You look credible and vindicated. It was manipulative. It was using the media the same way Valencia had used Sophie. But it might also be their best chance to salvage the Foundation's reputation. What do you think? Marlowe asked Caspian. I think we don't have many options left. If we don't control this story, someone else will. He looked at Kenna. Set it up. We'll show the recording. The interview was in a studio downtown, small and intimate. Amanda Cross was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a reputation for tough but fair journalism. She built her career on exposing corruption, which made her the perfect person for this story. Thank you for agreeing to talk, Amanda said once they were seated. Cameras rolled. Let's start with the obvious question. Did you know about Thaddeus Hale's involvement in his wife's death? No, Caspian said firmly. I found out the same time the police did. When Marcus Delaney gave us evidence his sister had kept. And Miss Bennett, there are allegations that you fabricated your father's medical condition to extort money from Mr. Hale. How do you respond? My father is in the hospital right now, fighting for his life. His medical records are real and verified. The allegations were part of a coordinated attack designed to discredit me and shut down the Foundation. Marlowe's voice was steady. Someone opened a bank account in my name and used it to make it look like I'd bribed doctors. That person has been arrested. But you did accept money from Mr. Hale. A significant amount, according to reports. I accepted a job running his foundation. And yes, he agreed to cover my father's medical treatment as part of my compensation. That might seem unusual, but it's not illegal or unethical. It's actually exactly what the Foundation exists to do, help people who need medical care they can't afford. Amanda turned to Caspian. Your ex-fiancée, Valencia Ashford, has been questioned in connection with your father's crimes. Were you aware of her involvement? Not until recently. But we have evidence that Valencia has been working to sabotage both the Foundation and my relationship with Marlowe from the beginning. What kind of evidence? Caspian nodded to Kenna, who handed Amanda a tablet with Sophie's video queued up. Amanda watched it, her expression growing more interested with each second. When it finished, she looked at the camera. For our viewers, I've just watched a recording that appears to show Valencia Ashford paying a restaurant employee to provoke Mr. Hale on the night he first met Miss Bennett. The goal, according to this recording, was to make Mr. Hale look cruel and manipulative in front of Miss Bennett. She turned back to them. Why would Valencia do this? Because she wanted me back, Caspian said. And she thought if she could make me look bad, drive away anyone I tried to build a relationship with, I'd eventually return to her. That's quite an accusation. It's the truth. And we have a witness willing to testify to it. The interview continued for another 30 minutes. Amanda asked hard questions and they answered honestly. By the end, Marlowe felt wrung out but hopeful. They told their story. Now it was up to the public to decide what to believe. As they were leaving the studio, Marlowe's phone rang. Detective Chin. Miss Bennett, I need you and Mr. Hale to come to the station. Now. What's happened? Valencia Ashford was just found dead in her apartment. And based on the evidence at the scene, you're both suspects. The police station felt colder this time. Or maybe Marlowe was just numb. She sat in the same interrogation room as before, but now Detective Chen looked at her with open suspicion instead of grudging respect. Valencia Ashford died sometime between 9 and 11 this morning, Chen said. Neighbors heard arguing around 9:30. By noon, Building security found her dead in her living room. Single gunshot to the chest. Marlowe's mind flashed to that morning. 9:30. She'd been with Sophie on Commonwealth Avenue. But could she prove it? I was meeting someone, Marlowe said. A witness. Sophie Martinez, the waitress from the restaurant where Caspian and I first met. Convenient. The same witness you just mentioned in your interview that aired an hour ago. Check street cameras. Traffic cameras. I was on Commonwealth and Berkeley from approximately 9:45 until 10:30. We will. But here's the problem, Ms. Bennett. Valencia's apartment building has security footage showing you entering at 9:15 this morning. Marlowe's blood went cold. That's impossible. I wasn't there. Chin slid a printed photo across the table. It showed a woman in a dark jacket and jeans entering Valencia's building. The woman's face was partially obscured by a baseball cap, but her height and build matched Marlowe's. That's not me, Marlowe said. You don't own a dark jacket? Jeans? A baseball cap. Half of Boston owns those things. That could be anyone. But it's not anyone. It's someone who looks remarkably like you, entering the building of a woman who was murdered shortly after. Chin leaned forward. And that same woman was captured on a traffic camera 3 blocks away 15 minutes later, still wearing the same outfit. This was a setup. Someone had dressed like Marlowe, gone to Valencia's apartment and murdered her. But who? Where was Caspian this morning? Marlowe asked. At the hospital with your father, according to his statement. Multiple witnesses confirm it. Of course. Whoever did this wanted to frame Marlowe specifically, not both of them. I want to see that footage, Marlowe said. All of it. If that's supposed to be me, there'll be something wrong. Some detail that doesn't match. Chin studied her for a long moment, then nodded. She left the room and returned with a laptop. The video showed the figure in dark clothes approaching Valencia's building. The walk was wrong, slightly different from Marlowe's usual gait. The height was close but not exact. And when the figure turned slightly at the entrance, Marlowe caught a glimpse of the side profile. Pause it, she said. Right there. Chin froze the frame. Look at the jawline. The nose. That's not me. The features are similar, but they're not mine. It's grainy footage. Hard to tell details. Then enhance it. Use facial recognition. Do whatever you do with evidence. Because that is not me, and if Valencia was murdered, I want to know who actually did it. Rebecca Walsh, Marlowe's lawyer, arrived shortly after. She'd been at another hearing when Detective Chen called, but she came immediately. My client is cooperating fully, Rebecca said. But unless you have actual evidence linking her to this crime, you need to release her. We have footage of someone who might look like her from a distance in bad lighting. That's not evidence. That's reasonable doubt at best. Rebecca pulled out her own tablet. And I have traffic camera footage from Commonwealth Avenue showing Ms. Bennett at the exact time you claim she was committing murder 3 miles away. Chin looked at the footage. Her expression shifted slightly. This doesn't completely clear her. The timelines are tight. She could have gone to Valencia's apartment first, then to Commonwealth. Check her phone GPS, check rideshare records. Check everything. Rebecca's voice was steel. You'll find that Ms. Bennett was nowhere near that apartment when Valencia Ashford died. They kept Marlowe for another 2 hours, going over her movements that morning in excruciating detail. Finally, Chin let her go. Don't leave town, Chin said. This investigation is ongoing. Outside the police station, Caspian was waiting. He pulled Marlowe into a tight hug the moment he saw her. I thought they were going to arrest you, he said. They wanted to. But Rebecca's footage saved me. Marlowe pulled back. Someone dressed like me. Someone who knew I'd be meeting Sophie this morning. Someone who knew my general appearance and could pass for me on security cameras. Someone who wants you to take the fall for Valencia's murder. They got into Rebecca's car. She drove them to Marlowe's apartment, checking constantly to make sure they weren't being followed, Rebecca said. Someone's systematically eliminating anyone who might have information about Thaddeus's crimes. Marcus Delaney, now Valencia. Who's next? Sophie, Marlowe said immediately. She has evidence against Valencia. If someone knows she talked to me, call her. Now. Marlowe dialed Sophie's number. It rang 6 times, then went to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. She's not answering, Marlowe said, panic rising in her chest. Do you know where she lives? Caspian asked. No. She just said she worked at Romano's and needed money for her mother's medical bills. Call the restaurant. Get her address. Marlowe called Romano's. The manager was reluctant to give out employee information until Marlowe explained it was an emergency involving Sophie's safety. Finally, he provided an address in Dorchester. They drove there immediately, Rebecca breaking every speed limit. Sophie lived in a rundown apartment building with peeling paint and a broken intercom. They ran up 3 flights of stairs to apartment 3C. Marlowe pounded on the door. "Sophie, it's Marlowe Bennett. Open up." No answer. Caspian tried the handle. "Lock." "We need to call the police," Rebecca said. "And tell them what? That we're worried about a witness in a case where Marlowe's already a suspect? That'll go over well." Caspian looked at the door. "Stand back." He kicked it. The old wood splintered around the lock and the door flew open. Inside, the apartment was small and neat. No signs of struggle. No body. "Sophie?" Marlowe called out. A voice came from the bedroom. "Don't come in here. I have a gun." "Sophie, it's me. Marlowe. From this morning. I'm with Caspian Hale and our lawyer. We came because we think you might be in danger." Silence. Then the bedroom door opened slowly. Sophie stood there, pale and shaking, holding a kitchen knife instead of a gun. When she saw it was really Marlowe, she started crying. "Someone broke into my apartment while I was at work," Sophie said. "They went through everything. Took my laptop. My phone, the one with the recording, is missing." Marlowe's stomach dropped. "Do you have backups?" "I uploaded it to a cloud service this morning, right after I met you. But they have the original now." "That's okay. We can still get the backup. But you're not safe here." Marlowe looked at Caspian. "She needs protection." "I'll arrange a hotel," Caspian said immediately. "Under a fake name. We'll get you somewhere safe until this is over." "Who's trying to hurt me?" Sophie asked, her voice small. "We don't know yet. But someone's cleaning up loose ends. Making sure no one can testify against them." They took Sophie to a hotel in Cambridge, far from her apartment. Caspian paid cash and used a fake name. They got her settled in a room with explicit instructions not to answer the door for anyone. Back in the car, exhausted and running on adrenaline, they tried to piece together what was happening. "Valencia's dead," Marlowe said. "Marcus is dead. Delaney is dead. Someone's eliminating everyone connected to Iris's death and the subsequent cover-up." "My father's in jail," Caspian said. "He can't be doing this himself. But he could be directing someone from inside. Or he has accomplices we don't know about." Rebecca pulled over and turned to face them. "Here's what we know. Someone with resources and inside knowledge is systematically destroying evidence and witnesses. They framed you for Valencia's murder or tried to. They're connected to both Thaddeus and Valencia. Who fits that profile?" Marlowe thought through everyone they'd encountered. The board members. Thaddeus's business associates. Valencia's friends. Then a name hit her. "Hollis." "Caspian, what happened to your father's assistant after we fired him?" Caspian's eyes widened. "He disappeared. Said he was leaving town. But I never verified it. He had access to everything. Your father's schedule, his contacts, his business dealings. He knew about Valencia because she was constantly calling the office. He probably knew about Marcus and Delaney too. And he'd know what you look like," Rebecca added. "He could have hired someone to impersonate you." They called Detective Chin immediately. She listened to their theory with obvious skepticism but agreed to look into Hollis's whereabouts. 30 minutes later she called back. "Hollis Brennan was found dead 3 days ago in a hotel room. Apparent overdose. We didn't connect it to the other deaths because there was a suicide note." "Let me guess," Caspian said. "The note said he couldn't live with the guilt of helping my father?" "How did you know that?" "Because it's the same pattern. Make deaths look like suicides or accidents. Eliminate anyone who might talk." Chin was quiet for a moment. "I'm starting to think you're right about someone orchestrating all of this. But if Hollis is dead too, who's the puppet master?" That was the question none of them could answer. Marlowe's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your father's treatment will be discontinued at midnight tonight unless you withdraw all accusations against Thaddeus Hale. Your choice, justice or family." Her hands shook as she showed the message to Caspian. "They're threatening Eugene," she said. "They're going to kill my father if we don't back down. They're bluffing. The hospital has security. Your father's care is paid for. They can't just." They got to Marcus in his apartment. To Valencia in a secure building. To Hollis in a hotel. "You think a nursing home is going to stop them?" Caspian was already calling the hospital. He spoke rapid fire with someone, then hung up looking grim. "I've authorized round-the-clock private security for your father. Armed guards. No one gets in that room except approved medical staff. That won't stop someone determined enough. It'll slow them down. Buy us time to figure out who's behind this. But time was something they didn't have. Marlowe could feel it slipping away with every minute that passed. Rebecca dropped them at Marlowe's apartment. Inside, Kenna was waiting, looking frantic. The interview aired, she said. It's everywhere. People are calling you brave, calling for justice for Iris Hale. But then news broke about Valencia's murder and now half the internet thinks Marlowe you did it flatly. I know that. But perception is reality right now, and the perception is that you're either a victim or a murderer depending on who you ask. Marlowe's phone rang. The nursing home. Ms. Bennett, this is Nurse Caroline. Your father's awake and asking for you. He seems agitated. I'll be right there. Despite the exhaustion, despite the danger, Marlowe needed to see her father. Needed to make sure he was okay. Caspian drove her to Whispering Pines. The private security he'd arranged was already there. 2 men in suits who looked former military. They checked IDs before letting anyone near Eugene's room. Inside, Eugene was sitting up in bed, looking weak but alert. When he saw Marlowe, his expression shifted to relief and anger. What the hell is going on? He demanded. His voice was raspy from the breathing tube, but the fire was back. Nurses are talking about murders and threats. Security guards outside my door. What have you gotten yourself into? Marlowe sat beside his bed and told him everything. About Iris's death, Thaddeus's arrest, the threats against the Foundation, Valencia's murder, and the attempt to frame her for it. Eugene listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You should walk away, he said finally. Dad. Listen to me. These people are killers. They've already murdered 3 people that we know of. You keep pushing, they'll come after you next. Or after me to get to you. He gripped her hand. I'm not worth your life, Marlowe. You're worth everything to me. And you're worth everything to me. Which is why I'm telling you to quit. Leave the Foundation. Let the police handle it. Live your life. I can't do that. Why not? Because Iris Hale deserves justice. Because if I walk away, whoever's doing this wins. And because I promised Caspian I'd help him build something good out of all this tragedy. Marlowe's voice broke. I can't just give up, Dad. You taught me better than that. Eugene's eyes filled with tears. I also taught you to know when a fight is too big to win. But you never followed that advice yourself. You worked yourself to death raising me alone. You never gave up even when things were impossible. That's different. No, it's not. You fought for me. Now I'm fighting for something that matters. They sat in silence, hands clasped. Finally, Eugene sighed. You're as stubborn as your mother was. You say that like it's a bad thing. It got her killed, Marlowe. Eugene's voice was heavy. Your mother didn't just leave because she was depressed. She left because she'd witnessed something. Something bad. And the people involved found out and I couldn't protect her. The room seemed to tilt. What are you talking about? Your mother worked as a housekeeper for a wealthy family when you were little. She saw the husband doing something illegal. I don't know what exactly, she never told me the details. But she was scared. Said if she went to the police, he'd destroy us. So she ran instead. Thought if she disappeared, he'd leave us alone. Did he? I don't know. She died in a car accident 6 months after she left. The police said it was just bad weather, bad timing. But I always wondered. Eugene's grip tightened on Marlowe's hand. I don't want to lose you the same way. These rich people, they play by different rules. They think they're above consequences. Marlowe's mind was reeling. Her mother hadn't abandoned them. She'd been running from something. Someone. Did you keep her letters? Marlowe asked. You said she wrote to me. They're in storage with my things. The nursing home has a box of my personal belongings in their basement. I need to see them. Marlowe? If Mom was running from someone wealthy and powerful, if she died because of what she witnessed, Dad, what if it's connected? What if the same patterns that got her killed are happening again? It seemed impossible. Too coincidental. But Marlowe had learned over the past week that powerful families had long memories and longer reaches. She called Nurse Caroline and asked about accessing Eugene's stored belongings. The nurse said she'd bring the box up in the morning. It was too late tonight to go down to the storage area. Marlowe stayed with her father until visiting hours ended. When she finally left, Caspian was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his car. How is he? Caspian asked. Scared. Angry. Trying to get me to quit. Are you going to? Marlowe looked up at the nursing home building, at the window where her father's room glowed with soft light. No, she said. But I need to know something. My father just told me my mother didn't abandon us. She was running from someone. Someone wealthy who she'd witnessed committing a crime. She died in a car accident 6 months after leaving. Caspian's expression shifted. You think it wasn't an accident? I think powerful people have been getting away with murder in this city for a long time. And maybe it's time someone stopped them. They drove back to Marlowe's apartment in heavy silence. Inside, Kenna had fallen asleep on the couch, her laptop still open to news articles about the case. Marlowe's phone buzzed one more time before she finally turned it off for the night. Another unknown number. Another message, last warning. Drop this or everyone you love dies. Starting with the witness you're hiding in Cambridge. They knew about Sophie. 3 in the morning and Marlowe was still awake, staring at her ceiling. Beside her on the couch, she'd refused to let Caspian leave, citing safety concerns. He was also awake, his phone casting blue light across his face. We should have heard from Sophie by now, Marlowe said. She was supposed to check in every 2 hours. Maybe she's sleeping. Would you be able to sleep if someone was threatening your life? Caspian sat up. Call the hotel. Marlowe dialed the front desk. A bored-sounding clerk answered. I need to check on a guest. Room 412. Can you transfer me? One moment. The phone rang. And rang. And rang. No answer. Try again, Caspian urged. Marlowe called back. This time she asked the clerk to physically check on the room. That's not really our policy, ma'am. I think my friend might be in danger. Please, just knock on the door and make sure she's okay. A long pause. I'll send security up. 5 minutes that felt like hours. Finally, the clerk came back on the line. Ma'am, the room is empty. Looks like your friend left in a hurry. Belongings are still there, but she's gone. Marlowe's blood turned to ice. Call the police. No. Tell them there's a potential kidnapping. They drove to the hotel, breaking every traffic law. Police were already there when they arrived, taking statements from the night staff. Sophie's room looked exactly as the clerk had described. Clothes on the bed, her purse on the dresser, phone plugged in and charging. But no Sophie. Detective Chen arrived 20 minutes later, looking exhausted and angry. Explain to me why you had a material witness hidden in a hotel instead of reporting her to police, she demanded. Because we didn't know who we could trust, Marlowe said. Someone's been one step ahead of us this entire time. They knew about Marcus. They knew about Valencia. They knew Sophie was in that hotel room even though we paid cash and used a fake name. You think there's a leak in the police department? I think someone with resources has access to information they shouldn't have. Whether that's through your department, the hospital, or somewhere else, I don't know. Chen looked like she wanted to argue but couldn't. Security footage shows a woman leaving the hotel at 2:15 this morning. She was walking under her own power, but she looked dazed. Like she'd been drugged. They reviewed the footage. Sophie stumbled out of the hotel, got into a waiting car and disappeared. The license plate was obscured. She's alive, Caspian said. That's something. Or they kept her alive long enough to get information out of her, Chen replied grimly. If she told them about the recording backup, they'll destroy it. And her. Marlowe felt sick. Sophie had come forward to do the right thing, and now she was paying for it. Chen's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face went pale. We'll be right there, she said, hanging up. She looked at Marlowe and Caspian with an unreadable expression. They found a body. Female mid-20s. Shot execution style in an abandoned warehouse in Southie. Marlowe's legs went weak. Sophie? We don't know yet. But given the timing. Chen didn't finish the sentence. They drove to the warehouse in silence. The area was industrial, deserted at night, the kind of place where you could fire a gun and no one would hear. Police lights strobed across crumbling brick walls. Chen led them to the crime scene tape. Beyond it, investigators photographed a covered body. I need one of you to make a preliminary identification, Chen said quietly. I know it's hard, but I'll do it, Marlowe said. She walked forward on shaking legs. A medical examiner pulled back the sheet covering the victim's face. It wasn't Sophie. Relief and horror crashed through Marlowe simultaneously. The dead woman was in her 50s, with graying hair and a kind face frozen in death. She looked familiar somehow. Do you know her? Chen asked. I'm not sure. I feel like I've seen her before, but I can't place where. Caspian came forward and looked at the body. His face went completely white. That's Dr. Morrison's nurse, he said. From Whispering Pines. She was one of the people who helped with your father's treatment. The pieces clicked into place with terrible clarity. The nurse had access to Eugene's medical records. to patient information, to everything about his care and condition. She was the leak, Marlowe whispered. She was feeding someone information about my father. Chen's expression hardened. Did she have any connection to Thaddeus Hale that you know of? I don't know. But someone convinced her to spy on us. And when she became a liability? Marlowe looked at the covered body. They killed her. A uniformed officer approached Chen. Detective, we found something in the victim's pocket. A phone with one unsent text message. Chen took the phone, read the message, then showed it to Marlowe and Caspian. Asterisk, I'm sorry. They have my daughter. Said they'd kill her if I didn't help them. The girl Sophie is at the old Hale Industries warehouse on Pier 7. They're going to kill her at dawn. I can't do this anymore. God forgive me. Asterisk. The message was time-stamped 20 minutes before the estimated time of death. Pier 7, Caspian said immediately. That's one of my father's properties. Been abandoned for years since the business moved to a newer facility. Chen was already on her radio calling for backup and a tactical team. We're going in. You two stay here. Like hell, Marlowe said. Sophie's there because of me. I'm not waiting in a parking lot while you storm the place. This isn't a negotiation. Then arrest me. Otherwise I'm going. Chen looked like she wanted to argue, but time was running out. Dawn was less than 2 hours away. Fine. But you stay in the car. Behind the police line. If you interfere with this operation, I will have you arrested. Understood. Marlowe nodded, though she had no intention of keeping that promise if it came down to it. They drove in a convoy to Pier 7. The old warehouse loomed against the pre-dawn sky, dark and forbidding. Police surrounded the building, SWAT teams moving into position with military precision. Chen coordinated from a mobile command center. Thermal imaging showed at least 3 heat signatures inside the building. 1 stationary on the ground floor, 2 moving on the second level. Sophie's probably the stationary one, Chen said. The other 2 are likely guards. Or her kidnappers are long gone and those are just homeless people squatting in an abandoned building, one of the officers suggested. Only one way to find out. Chen gave the order to breach. The SWAT team moved in fast and efficient. Marlowe watched from the car, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Beside her, Caspian gripped the door handle like he was ready to bolt out at any second. Gunshots echoed from inside the warehouse. Marlowe's door was open before she realized she'd made the decision. Caspian grabbed her arm. Don't. Let them do their job. Sophie's in there. And running into a gunfight won't save her. It'll just get you killed. More gunshots. Shouting. Then silence. Chen's radio crackled. 2 suspects down. 1 in custody. Victim is alive. I repeat, victim is alive. We need EMTs now. Relief flooded through Marlowe so intensely she almost collapsed. Sophie was alive. Paramedics rushed into the building. Minutes later, they emerged with Sophie on a stretcher. She was conscious, crying but alive. They loaded her into an ambulance. Marlowe ran over before anyone could stop her. Sophie? Can you hear me? Sophie's eyes found her face. I'm sorry. They made me tell them about the recording. They have it now. They're going to destroy it. It's okay. We have backups. You're safe now. That's all that matters. My mom. They said they have my mom. That they'd hurt her if I didn't cooperate. We'll find her. I promise. The ambulance doors closed and Sophie was rushed to the hospital. Chen approached looking grim. The 2 suspects we shot are dead. The 1 in custody isn't talking. But we found this. She held up a phone in an evidence bag. Encrypted messaging app. Looks like someone's been coordinating these attacks remotely. Our tech team is trying to crack it. How long will that take? Caspian asked. Could be hours. Could be days. These things are designed to be nearly impossible to break into. Let me try, said a voice behind them. They turned to see Kenna approaching, looking determined. I'm not just a PR person. I used to work in cybersecurity before I switched careers. If it's a standard encryption, I might be able to crack it faster than your tech team. Chen looked skeptical but handed over the phone. You have 2 hours. After that, it goes to our official channels. They relocated to Marlowe's apartment. Kenna sat up at the kitchen table with her laptop, the seized phone connected via cables. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code scrolling across the screen. Caspian made coffee. Marlowe paced. The sun was rising now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A beautiful morning that felt wrong given everything that had happened. I can't just sit here, Marlowe said finally. My father's nurse is dead. Sophie almost died. We need to do something. Like what? Caspian asked. We've given everything to the police. We've protected Sophie. We've exposed Valencia's manipulation. What else can we do? Figure out who's actually behind all this. Because it's not your father. He's in jail. It's not Valencia, she's dead. It's not Hollis, he's dead too. Someone else is pulling the strings. Someone who has access to everything, Kenna said, not looking up from her screen. Someone who knows your movements, your plans, who you're talking to. Someone close. The words hung in the air. Someone close. Marlowe thought through everyone in their orbit. The Foundation board members. The lawyers. The hospital staff. Detective Chin herself. What if it's been Chin this whole time? Marlowe said slowly. She's had access to every piece of evidence, every witness statement. She'd know exactly who to target and when. She's the lead detective, Caspian said. If she wanted to cover things up, she could have done it differently. Made evidence disappear. Closed cases prematurely. Unless she's not covering up. Unless she's actually investigating, but someone's feeding her false information to throw her off track. Kenna suddenly sat up straight. I'm in. She turned the laptop so they could see. The phone's messaging app was open, showing dozens of encrypted conversations. I need a few more minutes to decrypt the actual messages, but I can see the contact list. And there's one number that appears more than any other. Looks like it's the person coordinating everything. She ran the number through a reverse lookup. The result made Marlowe's blood run cold. The number was registered to Margaret Chin, Detective Chen's mother. That can't be right, Caspian said. Why would Chen's mother be involved in any of this? Marlowe's mind raced through everything she knew about Detective Chen. She'd been professional, thorough, skeptical but fair. She'd seemed genuinely committed to finding the truth. But what if that was all an act? What if Chen had been protecting her mother this whole time? We need to call someone, Marlowe said. FBI, state police, someone outside the local department. Before anyone could respond, there was a knock at the door. Marlowe looked through the peephole. Detective Chin stood in the hallway, alone. Don't open it, Kenna whispered. The knock came again. Miss Bennett? I know you're in there. We need to talk. Marlowe's hand hovered over the doorknob. Every instinct screamed danger. But if Chen was here to harm them, she wouldn't knock politely and announce herself. She opened the door but kept the chain on. What do you want? Marlowe asked. Chen looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. I know you found the number. The phone we recovered. I know it traces back to my mother. Then you know we can't trust you. My mother has Alzheimer's, Chen said, her voice cracking. She's been in a care facility for 18 months. She doesn't know what day it is half the time. Someone stole her phone and identity to make it look like she's involved. Marlowe searched Chen's face for any sign of deception. All she saw was grief and exhaustion. How do we know you're telling the truth? Caspian asked from behind Marlowe. Because I've spent the last hour trying to reach her facility. They confirmed her phone was stolen 3 weeks ago. They filed a police report, but it got buried in bureaucracy. Chen pulled out a folder. I have documentation. Visitor logs, medical records, everything. My mother couldn't have coordinated these attacks. She can barely remember her own name. Marlowe slowly opened the door fully. Chen stepped inside, moving carefully like she knew one wrong move would make them bolt. If it's not your mother, then someone with access to her information set this up, Kenna said. Who would have that access? Family members, medical staff, facility administrators. Chen paused. Or anyone who could hack into the facility's database. So we're back to square one, Marlowe said. We don't know who's behind this. Not quite. Because whoever used my mother's phone made a mistake. Chen pulled out her own phone. They sent one message from an unsecured network. Just one, buried in hundreds of encrypted ones. But that one message gives us an IP address. She showed them the trace. The IP address belonged to a law office downtown. Rebecca Walsh's law office. The lawyer who'd been helping them this entire time. No, Caspian said. Rebecca's been protecting us. She's on our side. Or she's been close enough to know every move we make, Chen said. Close enough to feed information to whoever's running this operation. Close enough to make sure evidence goes exactly where it needs to go. Marlowe thought back through every interaction with Rebecca. The woman had been professional, efficient, always one step ahead. She'd known exactly what to do, exactly who to call, exactly how to navigate every legal problem. Almost like she'd known the problems were coming before they happened. We need to confront her, Marlowe said. Not we. Me. Chen's expression was hard. This is police business now. You three stay here. Lock the door. Don't answer for anyone except me. I'll call when I have Rebecca in custody. After Chen left, they sat in tense silence. Kenna kept working on decrypting the messages. Caspian made more coffee they didn't drink. Marlo stared at her phone, willing it to ring with good news. An hour passed. Then two. Finally Marlo's phone rang. Chen's number. Did you get her? Marlo answered immediately. But it wasn't Chen's voice on the line. It was Rebecca's. I'm disappointed, Rebecca said, her voice cold and controlled. I really thought you were smarter than this. Running to the police with half-baked theories. Putting Detective Chen in danger. Where is she? Marlo demanded. What did you do? Detective Chen is fine. For now. She's with me and she'll stay safe as long as you follow instructions. Rebecca's tone was almost bored, like she was discussing a routine legal matter. Here's what's going to happen. You and Caspian are going to come to Hale Industries headquarters. Top floor. Alone. No police, no backup, no clever tricks. You have 30 minutes. And if we don't? Then I kill Detective Chen. Then I kill your father. Then I kill Sophie and her mother. Then I start working through everyone else you care about until there's no one left. Rebecca paused. I've already killed 5 people this week. 3 more won't make a difference. The line went dead. Marlo looked at Caspian and Kenna, her mind racing. She wants us at Hale Industries, she said. Alone. In 30 minutes or she starts killing people. It's a trap, Kenna said. Obviously. Of course it's a trap. But what choice do we have? Marlo grabbed her jacket. She has Chen. She can get to my father. She knows where Sophie is. If we don't go, people die. If you do go, you die, Kenna pointed out. Maybe. But at least we'll get answers first. Marlo looked at Caspian. You don't have to come. This isn't your fight. Like hell it isn't. My family's company. My father's crimes. My mother's death. Caspian grabbed his own jacket. I'm going. Then I'm calling the FBI, Kenna said. Give them a heads up. Maybe they can get there in time too. No, Marlo interrupted. Rebecca will know. She's been monitoring everything. If police show up, she'll start killing. So what's the plan? You just walk in there and hope she doesn't shoot you immediately? The plan is we stall. We get her talking. And we hope an opportunity presents itself. It was a terrible plan. But it was the only one they had. Caspian drove to Hale Industries. The building looked different in the morning light, less imposing, more ordinary. Just glass and steel and the ghosts of business deals past. They took the elevator to the top floor. The doors opened onto what had been Thaddeus's executive suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Boston, expensive furniture arranged to project power and wealth. Rebecca stood by the windows, silhouetted against the morning sky. She looked different. Her usual professional mask had slipped, revealing something colder underneath. Detective Chen sat in a chair, hands zip-tied behind her back, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. She was conscious but dazed. Right on time, Rebecca said. I appreciate punctuality. Let her go, Marlo said. Whatever this is about, Chen's not part of it. Of course she is. Everyone's part of it. That's how systems work. Everyone plays their role whether they know it or not. Rebecca smiled without warmth. Detective Chen's role was to investigate just thoroughly enough to make it look legitimate, but not so thoroughly that she'd actually solve anything. She failed. Why are you doing this? Caspian asked. You've been helping us for weeks. Why turn now? Turn? I never turned. I've been exactly where I needed to be from the beginning. Rebecca moved away from the windows and Marlo saw she was holding a gun. Let me tell you a story. 20 years ago, a young housekeeper witnessed Thaddeus Hale committing corporate espionage and fraud. She was going to report it. But Thaddeus couldn't have that, so he arranged an accident. A car crash in bad weather. The woman died. Her husband and young daughter were left behind. Marlo's blood turned to ice. My mother. Your mother, Eleanor Bennett. She worked for the Hale family before you were born. She saw things she shouldn't have seen. And Thaddeus Hale killed her for it. Rebecca's expression was almost sympathetic. I've been working for Thaddeus for 15 years. I knew what he'd done. I helped cover it up. I facilitated a dozen other crimes just like it. Then why expose him now? Caspian demanded. Why help us build a case against him? Because I'm dying, Rebecca said simply. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. I have maybe 3 months left. And I realized I didn't want to die as the person who'd spent her life protecting monsters. She gestured with the gun. So I decided to burn it all down. Every crime, every cover-up, every person who profited from Thaddeus's evil. I was going to expose everything, destroy the Hale Empire completely. By killing people? Marlowe's voice shook with rage. By murdering Marcus and Valencia and that nurse? That's not justice. That's just more evil. It's necessary evil. Marcus was going to sell his sister's evidence to the highest bidder. Valencia was planning to blackmail Caspian into taking her back. The nurse was reporting your father's condition to Thaddeus's allies so they could use it as leverage. They were all obstacles to real justice. You're insane, Shin said, her voice slurred from the head injury. You've killed 5 people and you're calling it justice? I've eliminated 5 problems. There's a difference. Rebecca pointed the gun at Marlowe. And now I have one final problem to solve. You, Marlowe. You're the daughter of the woman whose death I helped cover up. You deserve to know the truth before you die. Consider it my final gift. I don't want your gifts, Marlowe said. I want you to put down the gun and turn yourself in. That's not how this ends. Rebecca's finger moved to the trigger. This ends with me making sure the Hale family pays for everything they've done. And that includes making sure there's no one left to defend them. She aimed at Caspian. Everything happened in slow motion. Marlowe saw Rebecca's finger squeeze the trigger. She saw Caspian's eyes widen. She saw her own hand reaching out uselessly, too far away to stop what was about to happen. And then Detective Chen, still zip-tied to the chair, threw herself forward with all her weight. The chair hit Rebecca's legs. The gun went off, the bullet shattering a window instead of Caspian's chest. Rebecca stumbled, fell, and the gun skittered across the polished floor. Marlowe dove for it. Her fingers closed around cold metal just as Rebecca lunged at her. They struggled, rolling across the floor. Rebecca was strong, fueled by desperation and rage. But Marlowe was younger, fighting for her life and everyone she loved. Marlowe got the gun pointed away from herself. Squeezed the trigger. The shot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. Rebecca went still. Marlowe scrambled away, breathing hard, shaking. Rebecca lay on the floor, blood spreading across her expensive blouse, eyes staring at the ceiling. Is she? Caspian didn't finish the question. Marlowe checked for a pulse. Nothing. She's dead. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Kenna must have called the police anyway, despite instructions not to. Caspian cut Chen's zip ties with a letter opener from the desk. The detective slumped forward, catching herself before she fell. You saved our lives, Marlowe said to her. Just doing my job, Chen replied, touching her bleeding head and wincing. Though I'll admit, getting pistol-whipped and used as a hostage wasn't in the job description. The next hours were a blur of police statements, medical examinations, and endless questions. Rebecca had left a detailed confession on her computer, a digital manifesto explaining every crime she'd committed and why. She'd documented Thaddeus's murder of Eleanor Bennett 20 years ago. She'd outlined her own role in covering it up. And she'd explained, in chilling detail, how she'd systematically eliminated everyone who stood in the way of her final plan. That plan, apparently, had been to destroy the Hale family completely and then die knowing she'd achieved some twisted form of redemption. She was right about one thing, Caspian said as they finally left the police station that evening. My father killed your mother. That's a truth we both have to live with now. Marlowe didn't know how to respond to that. Learning that Thaddeus Hale had murdered her mother explained so much. Her father's bitterness, his warnings about rich people, his fear when Marlowe got involved with the foundation. Eugene had known, or at least suspected. And he'd spent 20 years trying to protect her from the same fate. What happens now? Marlowe asked. Now Thaddeus goes to trial for your mother's murder along with everything else. Now we testify. Now we make sure everyone knows exactly what he did. Caspian took her hand. And then we build the foundation the right way. As a real memorial to my mother and yours. It wasn't the ending Marlowe had expected. It wasn't clean or simple or entirely satisfying. But it was honest, and maybe that was enough. 3 months later, spring was turning into summer. Marlowe stood in the foundation's office, now fully operational with a staff of 12 and a waiting list of families needing help. Eugene was out of the hospital, recovering at home with round-the-clock care that the foundation paid for. The experimental treatment had worked. He had years ahead of him, the doctors said. Years to spend with his daughter, to finally read Eleanor's letters to Marlowe, to heal from 2 decades of carrying terrible secrets. Sophie had testified at Thaddeus's trial. Her recording, combined with Rebecca's confession and mountains of other evidence, had sealed his fate. Thaddeus Hale was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The judge had called his crimes a systematic abuse of power that resulted in multiple deaths and immeasurable suffering. The Foundation had survived the scandal, barely. Public opinion had swung wildly, at first condemning Marlowe and Caspian, then supporting them once the truth emerged. Now they existed in a careful balance, proving themselves with every family they helped, every scholarship they funded, every life they changed. Kenna had quit her PR job to work for the Foundation full-time. "I'm tired of making rich people look good," she'd said. "I'd rather help people who actually deserve it." Detective Chin had been promoted to lieutenant for her work on the case. She'd also become an unexpected ally, helping navigate the legal complexities of the Foundation and occasionally stopping by to check on Marlowe. And Marlowe and Caspian. That was complicated. They'd tried dating officially once things calmed down. It had been awkward at first, too much trauma, too much history, too many associations with death and danger. But slowly, carefully, they'd found their way to something real. Not the dramatic, intense connection forged in crisis. Something quieter, steadier, built on actually knowing each other rather than just surviving together. "You're thinking too hard again," Caspian said, appearing in her office doorway with coffee. He'd learned her stress signals over the months. Knew when she needed caffeine and when she needed space. "Just reflecting," Marlowe said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "On how different everything is now. Different good or different bad?" "Just different." She smiled. "Though mostly good." He sat across from her desk. They'd maintained professional boundaries at work. No overt displays of affection, no special treatment. The Foundation needed to succeed on its merits, not because people thought it was some billionaire's vanity project for his girlfriend. "I got a call from the prosecutor's office," Caspian said. "They're filing additional charges against my father. Conspiracy to commit murder for what he did to your mother." Rebecca's confession provided enough evidence. Marlowe nodded slowly. She testified at the trial about Eleanor, about growing up thinking her mother had abandoned her, about the years of wondering what she'd done wrong to make her mother leave. Learning the truth had been devastating and liberating in equal measure. Her mother hadn't abandoned her. Her mother had tried to protect her in the only way she knew how. It didn't erase the pain, but it recontextualized it. "How's your father handling everything?" Caspian asked. "He's angry. At Thaddeus, at himself for not protecting Mom better, at the whole situation." Marlowe sipped her coffee. "But he's also lighter somehow. Like keeping that secret for 20 years was crushing him, and now that it's out, he can finally breathe." "I know the feeling." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The office buzzed with activity around them. Phones ringing, voices discussing cases, the normal sounds of a functioning nonprofit. "I have something for you," Caspian said. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "It's from my mother." "Well, not directly from her, but—" Marlowe opened it. Inside was a letter in Iris Hale's handwriting. "To whoever runs this foundation after I'm gone. If you're reading this, it means my son found someone worthy of carrying forward this work. I hope you're kind. I hope you're strong. I hope you understand that real change doesn't come from grand gestures but from consistent, patient effort. I also hope you'll forgive the mistakes we've made. Thaddeus and I raised Caspian in a world of privilege and power. We didn't always teach him the right lessons. I tried to course correct toward the end, but I worry it wasn't enough. Please be patient with him. He has a good heart even when he forgets to show it. He wants to help people even when he doesn't know how. He's capable of great things if he has the right partner. And if that partner happens to be someone he loves, all the better. I always hoped he'd find someone who'd challenge him, inspire him, make him better than he thought he could be. Take care of him. And take care of the people we're meant to serve. With hope, Iris Hale." Marlowe's eyes stung with tears. When did she write this? 6 months before she died. She left it with her attorney with instructions to give it to whoever I hired to run the foundation. Caspian smiled softly. She knew I'd need someone. She was just hoping I'd be smart enough to find the right person. "No pressure," Marlowe joked, but her voice cracked. "You've exceeded every expectation she could have had. Every expectation I had too." Before Marlowe could respond, Kenna burst into the office. "We have a problem," she said. "The Ashford family is threatening to sue. They're claiming Valencia's reputation was unfairly damaged by our testimony at the trial. They want the foundation to issue a public apology and pay damages." Caspian stood up. "Let them sue. We told the truth. We have recordings, evidence, everything we need to defend ourselves. I know. But the legal fees could bankrupt us. We're still recovering from all the negative publicity. Another lawsuit might be the thing that finally kills the foundation. Marlowe looked at the letter from Iris, at the words about patient, consistent effort. About not giving up even when things were hard. We don't apologize, Marlowe said firmly. We don't back down. We tell them to file their lawsuit and we'll see them in court. And while we're fighting that battle, we keep doing the work. Keep helping families. Keep making a difference. You're sure? Ken asked. This could get ugly. Everything about this foundation has been ugly from the start. But we're still here. Still fighting. Still making Iris's vision real. Marlowe stood up. So yes, I'm sure. Kenna grinned. That's what I was hoping you'd say. I'll draft a response. After she left, Caspian looked at Marlowe with something like awe. You know, when I first met you, really met you, not the stage thing Valencia arranged, I thought you were just someone who couldn't resist a fight. And now I think you're someone who knows which fights are worth having. That's a lot more valuable. Marlowe's phone rang. The nursing home. Her heart jumped. They only called if something was wrong with Eugene. Hello. Miss Bennett, it's Nurse Caroline. Don't panic, your father's fine. But he's asking for you. Says it's important. 20 minutes later, Marlowe was at her father's bedside. He looked better than he had in years, color in his cheeks, strength in his voice. The treatment had given him his life back. You sounded urgent, Marlowe said. What's going on? Eugene pulled a box from his bedside table. The box with Eleanor's letters. I've been reading through these, he said. Your mother wrote to you every week for 5 years. Told you about her life, her struggles, her hopes for you. He paused. But there's one letter that's different. One she wrote to both of us near the end. I think you need to read it. He handed her an envelope, yellowed with age and worn at the edges. Marlowe opened it with shaking hands. My dearest Eugene and Marlowe, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to leave you, but I couldn't see another way to keep you safe. Eugene, you know what I witnessed. What Thaddeus Hale did. I could have gone to the police, but he has power and money and connections. They would have believed him over a housekeeper. And even if they didn't, he would have found a way to hurt you and Marlowe to keep me quiet. So I'm disappearing. Making myself the target instead of you. If I'm gone, maybe he'll leave you alone. Maybe you and our daughter can have the life you deserve. Marlowe, sweet girl, I know you won't remember me. You're so young. But I need you to know that I loved you more than anything in this world. Every decision I've made has been to protect you. Even this terrible choice to leave. I hope you grow up strong. I hope you learn to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. I hope you never stop fighting for what's right even when it's hard. Eugene, take care of our girl. Teach her to be brave. Teach her to be kind. And please, when she's old enough, tell her I didn't abandon her. Tell her every single day I was away I was thinking of her. Missing her. Loving her. I don't know if Thaddeus will leave me alone. I don't know if running will be enough. But I have to try. For both of you. If something happens to me, please don't seek revenge. Just live. Be happy. Make the world better in small ways. That's all I ever wanted, to make things a little better for the people around me. I love you both. Always and forever. Eleanor. Marlowe finished reading with tears streaming down her face. Her mother hadn't just run away to protect herself. She'd run to draw Thaddeus's attention away from her family. To be the target so they could be safe. And Thaddeus had killed her anyway. Had arranged the accident that took her life. Had then left Eugene and Marlowe alone because eliminating Eleanor had been enough to protect his secrets. She died for us, Marlowe whispered. She died because a powerful man decided his reputation was more important than someone's life, Eugene corrected gently. Don't let him take that from her. Don't let him make her death about his choices. She chose to protect us. That's what matters. Marlowe folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. I'm going to frame this. Put it in the foundation office. Let everyone who works there know why we do what we do. Your mother would like that. They sat together for a while talking about Eleanor. Eugene shared memories Marlowe had never heard. How Eleanor loved to sing while she cleaned, how she'd saved for months to buy Marlowe a special doll for her 3rd birthday, how she'd wanted to go to college someday and become a teacher. A full person, not just the ghost Marlowe had carried around her whole life. When she finally left the nursing home, the sun was setting. Caspian was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his car. You didn't have to wait, Marlowe said. I wanted to. Figured you might need someone after reading whatever your father wanted to show you. She told him about the letter, about Eleanor's sacrifice. He listened without interrupting, just present and supportive. Your mother and mine, they were a lot alike, Caspian said when she finished. They both saw something wrong and tried to fix it. They both paid a price for that. And they both left behind people who were trying to finish what they started. You think that's what we're doing? Finishing their work? I think we're honoring them by doing work that matters. Whether that's finishing what they started or starting something new, I don't know. But it feels right. Marlowe leaned against the car beside him. The parking lot was empty except for them, the world quiet in that brief pause between day and night. Can I ask you something? She said. Something I've been wondering since this whole thing started. Anything. That first night at the restaurant, before you knew I was your date. When you were being cruel to Sophie because you were grieving your mother. She turned to look at him. If I hadn't intervened, would you have apologized on your own? Caspian thought about it for a long moment. Honestly, I don't know. I want to say yes, that I would have realized I was out of line. But I was so angry that day, so lost in my own pain, that I might have just kept going. Might have left that restaurant without even thinking about the person I'd hurt. And now I try to be better. Because you showed me I could be. Because my mother deserved better from me. Because the people we help deserve someone who actually gives a damn, not just someone throwing money at problems to feel good about themselves. It was the most honest answer he could have given. Not reassuring, not flattering, just true. I'm glad I met you, Marlowe said. Even though it started with Valencia's manipulation and ended with me shooting your lawyer. I'm glad our lives got tangled up together. So am I. Caspian took her hand. Even the ugly parts. Maybe especially the ugly parts. They made us who we are. They stood in the parking lot as stars began to appear overhead, holding hands and processing everything that had brought them to this moment. Want to get dinner? Caspian asked. Somewhere that's not Romano's. Marlowe laughed. God, yes. I never want to see that place again. They drove to a small Thai restaurant neither of them had been to before. Somewhere with no memories, no associations, just good food and quiet conversation. Felt like starting over. Like maybe, finally, they could just be two people who liked each other, unconnected to trauma and death and legal battles. It felt like the beginning of something real. 1 year later. The Foundation's anniversary gala was held in the same ballroom where Iris Hale had hosted charity events before her death. Hundreds of people filled the space. Donors, families they'd helped, board members, staff. Marlowe stood at the podium looking out at the crowd. She'd come so far from the scared social worker who'd yelled at a billionaire in a restaurant. She'd testified at trials, rebuilt her reputation, helped hundreds of families, and learned to carry the weight of her mother's story without letting it crush her. 1 year ago, this foundation almost died before it really began, Marlowe said into the microphone. We were caught in the crossfire of crimes we didn't commit, accused of fraud, investigated for murder. We had every reason to give up. She paused, finding Eugene in the crowd. He sat in a wheelchair, still recovering but alive and present. Beside him sat Sophie, whose testimony had helped put the final pieces together. Kenna stood near the back, phone in hand, ready to capture everything for social media. And in the front row, Caspian watched her with pride evident on his face. But we didn't give up. Because this foundation was never about us. It was about the people who needed help. Marlowe clicked to the first slide of her presentation. This is the Martinez family. 6 months ago, their daughter needed surgery they couldn't afford. Today she's healthy and thriving. This is James Chin, the first recipient of our scholarship program. He's now studying engineering at MIT. This is the Okafor family who lost everything in a fire. We helped them rebuild. She clicked through slide after slide. Real faces. Real families. Real lives changed. We've helped 217 families this year. We've funded 32 scholarships. We've paid for medical treatments, housing assistance, job training, and mental health services. We've done exactly what Iris Hale envisioned when she planned this foundation from her hospital bed. The crowd applauded. Marlowe waited for it to quiet. But we've also learned something important. This work isn't about grand gestures or one-time fixes. It's about showing up consistently even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. It's about seeing people's humanity even when systems are designed to make us forget it. She clicked to a final slide. 2 photos side by side, Iris Hale and Eleanor Bennett. These 2 women never met, but they had something crucial in common. They both saw injustice and tried to stop it. They both paid a terrible price for that courage. And they both left behind people who are committed to finishing what they started. Marlowe's voice thickened with emotion. My mother, Eleanor, was murdered 20 years ago for witnessing a crime. Iris Hale's life was stolen by deliberate medical neglect. Their deaths could have been meaningless tragedies. Instead, they've become the foundation of something meaningful. Something that actually helps people. The room was completely silent now. Even the servers had stopped moving. I can't bring them back. Neither can Caspian. We can't undo the harm that was done to them or to the families who lost them. But we can make sure their deaths weren't in vain. We can build something that would make them proud. She looked directly at Caspian. This foundation exists because two mothers loved their children enough to fight for a better world. It survives because their children decided to honor that fight instead of being destroyed by it. And it will continue because every single person in this room believes that kindness matters more than power, and that helping people is always the right choice. The applause was thunderous. People stood cheering. Marlowe saw tears on faces throughout the crowd. She stepped away from the podium as Caspian took the stage. I don't have much to add, he said, his voice carrying across the room. Marlowe said it better than I ever could. But I do want to say one thing. He turned to face her directly. A year ago, I met someone who challenged everything I thought I knew about myself. Someone who called me out when I was wrong, who stood beside me through impossible circumstances, who taught me that privilege means nothing if you don't use it to help others. He smiled. Marlowe, you've made me a better person. You've made this foundation real instead of just an idea. You've honored my mother's memory in ways I never could have done alone. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Marlowe's heart stopped. I know this isn't the traditional setting, Caspian continued, and I know we've been through hell to get here. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life working beside you, helping people with you, building something meaningful with you. He opened the box, revealing a simple ring, elegant but not ostentatious, perfect for someone who spent their days working with families in crisis. Marlowe Bennett, will you marry me? The room held its breath. Marlowe's mind flashed through the past year. The chaos, the danger, the grief, the gradual healing. The moments when she'd wanted to quit and the moments when she'd remembered why she couldn't. The nights planning programs and the days seeing those programs change lives. And through all of it, Caspian had been there. Not as a savior or a project or a means to an end. Just as a partner. An equal. Someone who believed in the same things she did and was willing to fight for them. Yes, she said. The word came out barely above a whisper, but the microphone caught it. The room erupted. Caspian slipped the ring on her finger and pulled her into a kiss while hundreds of people cheered. When they finally pulled apart, Marlowe was crying and laughing at the same time. You couldn't have just done this in private? She asked. Where's the fun in that? Caspian grinned. Besides, everyone here is part of our story. Seemed right to include them. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. People congratulated them, shared their own stories, talked about the foundation's impact. Eugene hugged Marlowe so tight she thought her ribs might crack. Your mother would have loved him, Eugene whispered. And she would have been so proud of you. Later, when the crowd had thinned and only close friends remained, Marlowe stood on the ballroom's balcony looking out over the city. Boston spread below her, millions of lights representing millions of lives. Some of those lives had been touched by the foundation. Most hadn't. There was always more work to do. Caspian joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. What are you thinking about? He asked. How far we've come. How far we still have to go. She leaned back against him. A year ago I thought my life was over. Career destroyed, reputation ruined, father dying. And now? Now you're engaged to a billionaire and running a successful foundation. It's very rags to riches. Except it's not about the money. It never was. I know. That's why I love you. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe beneath them. Somewhere out there, families were struggling with medical bills and housing costs and systemic injustice. Somewhere, kids were aging out of foster care with nowhere to go. Somewhere, people needed help they couldn't afford. And tomorrow the foundation would be there. Not solving everything, that was impossible. But helping where they could. Making a difference in whatever small ways were available. Do you ever wonder, Marlowe said softly, what would have happened if I hadn't intervened that night? If I just let you be terrible to Sophie and we'd never actually talked. All the time. And I'm grateful every single day that you couldn't resist calling me out. Caspian kissed the top of her head. Even though Valencia staged it. Even though none of it was real. The person you are, someone who stands up for people, that was real. And that's what changed everything. Valencia's family dropped the lawsuit, you know. Kenna told me today. They settled quietly. Issued an apology for the threats. Good. One less thing to fight. There'll always be something to fight. True. But at least we're fighting together. Inside the ballroom, someone started playing music. Soft and slow, meant for the stragglers who weren't ready for the night to end. Dance with me, Caspian said. Here? With no one watching? Especially here. With no one watching. Just us. They danced on the balcony with the city as their witness. No cameras, no crowd, no expectations. Just two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and built something beautiful anyway. Marlowe's phone buzzed. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again. You should check that, Caspian said. Could be important. She pulled it out. A text from Sophie. My mom's cancer is in remission. The treatment the foundation paid for worked. I don't know how to thank you. You saved her life. Marlowe showed the text to Caspian. He read it and smiled. That's why we do this, he said. Moments like that. I'm going to frame that text. Put it on my office wall next to my mother's letter. You should. Reminder of why the hard days are worth it. They danced a little longer, then headed back inside. Kenna was directing the cleanup crew, Eugene was holding court with other foundation board members, and the caterers were packing up the last of the food. Normal. Ordinary. Exactly what Marlowe had wanted all along. A life that mattered, surrounded by people who cared, doing work that made a difference. As they left the building, Marlowe took one last look at the ballroom. This was where it had all changed. Where they decided to fight instead of surrender. Where they'd chosen to honor the dead by helping the living. Ready to go home? Caspian asked. Home. Not her tiny apartment in South Boston anymore. They'd moved in together 3 months ago, to a place that was bigger than she needed but smaller than Caspian was used to. A compromise like everything in their relationship. Ready, she said. They walked to the car hand in hand, the engagement ring catching streetlight and throwing small rainbows across the pavement. Behind them the ballroom went dark. Another event finished, another chapter closed. But the foundation would open its doors again tomorrow. And the day after and that. And every day after, for as long as people needed help and Marlowe and Caspian had the strength to provide it. 1 year ago, Marlowe had stood up to an arrogant billionaire in a restaurant, not knowing it would change her life forever. Now she stood beside that same man, no longer arrogant, no longer a stranger, and looked toward a future they'd built together from the ashes of tragedy. Her mother's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. Iris's vision hadn't died with her. And the foundation that bore her name would continue helping people long after everyone involved was gone. That was the legacy they'd chosen. Not wealth or power or fame. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing they'd made the world a little bit better. As they drove through Boston streets toward home, Marlowe thought about the girl she'd been a year ago. Broken, alone, drowning in student debt and family medical bills. That girl would never have believed the life she was living now was possible. But it was possible. Because she'd refused to back down even when backing down would have been easier. Because she'd found someone willing to fight beside her instead of for her. Because two mothers had loved their children enough to sacrifice everything, and those children had honored that sacrifice by building something meaningful. What are you smiling about? Caspian asked, glancing over as he drove. Just thinking about how strange life is. How one moment can change everything. The moment you yelled at me in that restaurant? The moment I decided to stand up for someone who couldn't stand up for herself. That's when everything started. Lucky for me you can't resist defending people. Lucky for both of us. They pulled up to their building. A modest place by Caspian's standards, comfortable by Marlowe's. Another compromise, another symbol of the life they were building together. As they climbed the stairs to their apartment, Marlowe's phone rang one last time. Eugene. Everything okay, Dad? Everything's perfect. Just wanted to tell you again how proud I am. Of you, of what you've built, of who you've become. His voice was thick with emotion. Your mother would be so proud too. Thanks, Dad. I love you. Love you too, baby girl. Now go celebrate with your fiancé. Old men need their sleep. Inside the apartment, Caspian opened champagne while Marlowe kicked off her heels. They sat on the couch, glasses in hand, and toasted to survival. To justice. To love found in impossible circumstances. To your mother, Marlowe said, raising her glass. To yours, Caspian added. To everyone who fought for what was right, even when it cost them everything. They drank, the champagne sweet and bubbly on Marlowe's tongue. What happens now? Caspian asked. We're engaged, the foundation is stable, most of the bad guys are in prison. What's our next crisis? Hopefully none. Maybe we just get to be normal for a while. Normal sounds boring. Normal sounds perfect. They sat together in comfortable silence, processing the evening. The proposal, the gala, Sophie's text about her mother's remission. Good things after so many bad things. A balance finally achieved. I want kids someday, Marlo said suddenly. Is that something you want? Caspian looked surprised by the question but answered without hesitation. Yes. I want to raise them differently than I was raised. Teach them that money is a tool, not a measure of worth. Show them how to help people instead of just talking about it. Teach them to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. He took her hand. We'll be good parents. Better than ours were, in some ways. Different than ours were, definitely. Marlo smiled. But yeah, we'll figure it out. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities. Challenges, certainly. The foundation would face obstacles. Their relationship would have difficult moments. Life would throw curveballs. But they'd survive the worst year imaginable and come out stronger. Whatever came next, they could handle it together. Marlo's phone buzzed one final time. A notification from the foundation's social media account. Kenna had posted a photo from the gala. Marlo at the podium, mid-speech, the photos of Iris and Eleanor displayed behind her. The caption read, 1 year ago these two women's stories collided in tragedy. Tonight, their legacy lives on in every family we help, every life we change, every person who believes in second chances. Thank you to everyone who supports the Hale Foundation. This is just the beginning. The post had thousands of likes already. Comments poured in, people sharing their own stories, expressing gratitude, offering support. This was what they'd built. Not just a foundation but a community. People who believed that kindness mattered, that helping others was always worthwhile, that tragedy didn't have to define anyone's story. Read this, Marlo said, showing Caspian the phone. He read it and smiled. Kenna's good at her job. She really is. They finished their champagne and got ready for bed. Normal, domestic rituals that felt extraordinary because they'd fought so hard to have them. Brushing teeth side by side, changing into comfortable clothes, setting alarms for the morning. In bed, Caspian pulled Marlo close. Thank you, he said softly. For what? For saying yes. For staying. For believing we could build something good out of all that pain. Thank you for asking. For fighting. For being someone worth building a life with. They fell asleep tangled together, the city quiet outside their window. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new families to help, new obstacles to overcome. But tonight they just rested. Two people who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to create light. The foundation would open its doors in the morning. Phones would ring with families needing help. Staff would arrive ready to make a difference. And Marlo and Caspian would be there, leading by example, honoring the women who'd sacrificed everything so they could have this moment. 1 year ago, Marlo had stood up to an arrogant billionaire at the next table, not knowing he was her blind date. Tonight, she fell asleep beside him, wearing his ring, planning a future neither of them could have imagined. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best outcomes. Sometimes tragedy became the foundation for something beautiful. Sometimes standing up for what was right, even when it was dangerous, even when it cost everything, was exactly what needed to happen. The foundation that bore Iris Hale's name would continue long after everyone involved was gone. Families would be helped. Lives would be changed. The cycle of poverty and injustice would be challenged, one person at a time. And two people who'd started as strangers, thrown together by manipulation and murder and circumstances beyond their control, would spend the rest of their lives proving that love could emerge from darkness, that purpose could be born from tragedy, and that choosing compassion over cruelty was always worth it. This story honored the memory of two mothers, exposed the crimes of powerful men, brought justice to victims, and showed that even in our darkest moments, we have the choice to create something meaningful from pain. Marlo and Caspian's journey from that first confrontation to their engagement proved that real love isn't about perfect circumstances. It's about choosing each other again and again, even when everything else is falling apart.